G'day and wings. Ugh, God, it's one of those days, Algared. Welcome to the Inforunners. We have had a bit of a rough start here today, so I apologise for that. We just had some mic issues, but they're all sorted. All right. Yep. I'm awake now after all that. I don't know about you, Algared, but yeah.
What better way to wake you up than give you a technical difficulty?
Yes, that does it very well. All right, sorry about that, boys. So I know there's a lot of you waiting in chat, so appreciate it. You know what's happening now? Now that chat's not working, just to make my life really fun. But yeah, so yeah, I'll have to pull it up for you, Algared. Just give me a minute, and I'm gonna get the bot going as well. But I'll get into that in a second. All right. Algared, do you want to tell people what we're doing today while I try and fix this, if you would be so kind?
Yeah. Well, we're going to be doing talking about the new Arena Commander. We're going to be taking your questions. We're going to be watching ISC, and we have an exclusive. There you go.
Oh,
so
okay.
stay tuned.
You're leaving us a surprise, are you? Okay, all right.
Oh yeah.
All right, I won't say anything. It's your choice.
But I am pumped. I am pumped for it. It is something dear to my heart.
You've been working on it, haven't you, for a while? So yeah.
It's been something I've been involved in since 2015, or 2014 when we first started planning the first one. So yeah.
Okay. That's how weird it is. It's in the wrong place.
So. But yeah, exclusive coming. Exclusive content for Inforunners.
I'm just going to do a test here. I don't know if it's going to work. Test. Hey, it worked. Cool. Awesome. All fixed. Right. Only thing is I can't do polls there, so I'll have to do them over there. But other than that, we're good.
Right. And when I look over this way, I'm actually looking at the YouTube chat, so that, you know, it's so much easier to read than on the little screen that Lexi has set up. You know, it can't be helped. It's life.
I've tried to set it all up so you can do everything on one screen, but obviously it's not good enough.
It's just a little bit too small, unfortunately.
Well, it's only comes through at 1080, but it's all good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna do the bot, and then we are good to go.
Yep. And of course, our lighting kind of blinds you. See. I feel like Vanderbilt.
I'm very red today, though. I look like I'm sunburnt because of the explosion in the background. But yeah, other than that, we're all good.
It always has that type of effect. But I always feel like Vanderbilt. If anyone who's old remembers the old F Troop show, you know, can't see with a light, so it's quite bizarre sometimes.
JR Fabrications might have been hacked. I'm getting a message to join another server. But anyway.
There you go.
I'll get back to him and let him know he's been hacked, potentially. If it is even him. Anyway. Alright. Start the bot. Bot started. We are all good. Alrighty, Algared.
Apparently, according to chat, I'm getting remarried. That's interesting.
Remarried?
Yeah, remarried.
Have you ever been married before?
No, that's why it's a first to me, but I'm getting remarried. Damn, who was my first wife?
He's that old, he's forgotten.
Yeah, obviously old man Hurston had several.
What, several harems? Not just one harem, several harems. Right, I get it now. All right.
Yes, wives, but you know, okay, fine.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, make sure you throw us your questions. What else are we going to do, Algared? We've got your little exclusive thing to look at. ISC is not out yet, so that obviously is going to get pushed down the pipeline until that's out.
So we're doing filler.
We're doing filler, as we usually do.
Doing a little banter.
Yep. But, we've got Valentine's Day, not next week, but the week after. I'm trying to think of other things that are coming up. Luna's wrapping up, though.
Koromar is coming up.
Koromar. Is that what they call Valentine's Day? Are you doing a law thing and trying to trick me? Right.
Okay. No, it is Koromar in Star Citizen.
Okay.
And it's got to be it's part of that inclusivity. You know, you got to include all the races and make stuff nice for them and blah blah blah. You know, can't call it what we use nowadays.
I think that's something else we can do.
The Terrans probably get their knickers in a knot. You know.
I'm going to do a poll real quick while you're doing that, Algared. And I want to ask about
twiddling my thumb.
Yeah, I want to ask about guests because you and I were talking about this during the week. We want to have more guests on, like we had with Expat last week, because we had a lot of fun with Expat, and we thought that this live environment with guests it was just something we hadn't done before, really. So I'll do a quick poll.
And before you do that, hey Ace Hambone, thank you for about $10. And hi gents, thanks for the stream. We're glad to bring it to you. So thank you. As you're saying. Yeah, so the poll about our whether we should have guests on, because it is something you and I have talked about, and having a guest on does, or having a third or fourth person does, make it easier for us because it's less that we've got to talk.
Yeah, it can be a little weird, constantly talking and stuff like that, and I'm not exactly like we're both big talkers, let's be honest, but again, we only talk when it's needed. That's the other thing. It's a really hard thing to explain. Like we're obviously very passionate about the game,
but yeah. So there's a catch-22 for us. Do we have more guests or guests even more regularly, or do we just have them as more of a special event? So
yeah,
that's kind of where we're thinking.
Maybe like one a month or something like that. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, so we're we like having the guests. It is nice. It's nice if you can get other creators on and you can work with them. We've always been about kind of I think building the community, having that discourse with people. And I think the format we have where it is discussion and literally discussion where we cut in on each other, I think is different from so many other platforms or other creators. So it is probably the thing that makes us a bit more unique. At least I hope that's one of the things that makes us unique.
I hope so too, because it comes from passion. And if you watch any of the shows, we often have to tell other people to speak up because you got to get in there, you know, like
just jump in and say, I can't get a word in edgeways if you need to, because that's what we do.
It comes from passion,
you know. And
maybe
look, I know we are having a bit of lag. We were saying that before the stream. We're copying at both ends. So, but it is one of the things that even we do at times. We say, I've got to get a word in edgeways, and when we say it, sometimes I know on the stream it comes across that I or you are peeved off, and it is never. And it is passion. Never that. It honestly is never that.
It's like with badgers. What does he always say? I hate it when mummy and daddy fight.
Yeah.
And we've been in rooms with Space Tomato as well. Like we get even on those times where I'm really stressed at AIE, and if ever of us do go too far, it's instantly the next day or the next time we run into each other, I'm sorry that I went too far or whatever. So it just got to that point with me and Algared. We almost know where it comes from, so we don't get offended anymore. We're kind of just used to it. But
I think one of the classics I find was the other week. You know, where I said, look, I can't get a word. You know, let me get a word in, and I wasn't peeved off. And yet there were comments that had come back that gave the impression that I was really cheesed off, and I wasn't. There was no anger, there was no animosity, there was no nothing. It was just.
Oh, and now see the joke in chat. Someone's a smartass because I said, "Are you guys interested in more live guests?" And Gunther's saying in chat that we should have dead guests. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
You'll live to regret that, Gunther.
I think Gunther was the one.
You're going to live to regret that. Just remember, it was all Gunther when it happens. All right. Yeah.
I'll just point out that. And now Lag's killing us, but I think it was Gunther who also was saying that, hey, I'm getting remarried. So you know, he obviously knows stuff about us that we don't know. But yeah.
I've got to find a morgue, and I've got to find the city that Gunther lives in, and then he's going to have something just rock up at his door.
Well, you know,
as a house guest, you know, just a dead guest, it'll be fine. Just horse in the bed, you know, that type of thing. Yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah, no worries, Gunther says.
Oh, now I have to tell you all, I've had old man Hurston in my ear all week. He's been complaining. Someone linked a propaganda piece to me.
Oh, right. Can you link it and we'll watch it then if you've got it?
Oh, it was in our chat.
I'll try. Well, go scroll up and find it.
I'll see if I can find it.
I was about to refresh you, but you've refreshed yourself. It's all good.
It was in our media, and media releases, and it was from Hawk.
Link it to me in our.
Yep, I'm looking for our media channel. Where is our media channel?
Yeah, sure. Have you talked to Ashra, by the way?
Looking on chat.
He's in Twitch. Is that Ashra? Like
yes, that is our Ashra.
Yeah, okay,
I haven't spoken to him or haven't chatted to him since you guys had your chat because I've been working. You know?
We're thinking about doing a Fix My Fleet with Ashra for people that are not following along, but that's fine.
Yep.
Yep.
So we will do one. There it is.
Hey Hammer, nice to see you, mate.
And
yeah, so Ashra, we helped out. Oh, how long ago would it have been now? 12 months ago. We helped him, but we didn't do a kind of show thing. And that now he's come back and he wants help again. So it was an interesting one to see one that we've kind of done.
Execute.
Yeah. 3 years. It was 3 years ago. There you go. Helped him 3 years ago. I thought it was last year, but anyway, 3 years ago, and he's come back.
There you go. So our help is guaranteed for 3 years, it seems. You know, after 3 years, so people's fleets and things have changed so much, but they need more help.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That wouldn't be the first time that this happened, though, but yeah. So is this a live chat, Algared? It goes for 4 hours.
No, that's dang wrong. Wrong one. Sorry about that. That must have been.
Right. I was going to say that's a long propaganda piece. How long did it take you to pull that?
It was only a couple of minutes. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It took forever to do that. I'll go back and have a look.
It only took a minute, and it went for 4 hours and 49 minutes. That's almost longer than what we do sometimes, anyway. All right.
This is.
I'm going to look at a question then, Algared, while you find that real quick, if that's okay. Just to. All right. So Voodoo asks, or J Voodoo Child asks, Squadron 42's price doubled when offered as a standalone. With the discount seen in the LTI cutter, is it best to recommend waiting for the next LTI starter pack to start our CCE chains? Yeah. How much do you want the game, Voodoo? I think that kind of comes down to it. And really, was it that much big of a discount? It was $20.
That's it. Where does true power come from? What a trashy piece of propaganda, according to old man Hurston.
So
and
yeah,
I've got to agree with him.
Do you want to have a quick answer to Voodoo's question? He says, Squadron. So what he's saying is because Squadron 42 was available with.
Yep.
I don't remember it being available with the cutter. I thought it only came with the download.
Yeah. No, when it came out in that pack, it was
Squadron 42 and Starston.
I think you get Squadron 42, and you could.
Okay, I need to pay attention more to that because I thought it was only the default. All right, so Squadron 42's price doubled when offered as a standalone. With the discount seen in the LCI cutter, is it best to wait for a second starter pack to start our CCE chains? Yeah, but it's so long between drinks. And the other thing is, I don't think the other ones had massive discounts like that either. Because I'm thinking back to the last one was probably the Pisces, Algared.
Probably.
And the Nomad was another one. But the Nomad was heavily discounted, but still cost more than any other pack we've had before. Yeah. What was it? Was it like it was 90 USD for both, as opposed to 45 with the cutter. So that's half the price of what the Nomad was.
I think when they put Squadron 42 in the pack itself, not as a tack on when you go for the register. If you're after the game pack for Squadron 42, yes. But how many game packs of Squadron 42 do you need? Like, I could understand getting the PU game pack because that ultimately down the track will give you access to X number of NPCs, and we don't know what the cap for those NPCs is.
Yeah.
I've heard as few as 5. I've heard as many as 10. But I think part of that comes in with when those extra accounts are on the same account, like the Algared account, as opposed to the Joe Blogg's old account that I have. It's those extra slots that I have on my account will give me the slots to either have different characters or NPCs. But we don't know the limit of that we'll be allowed to have as NPCs.
So
I remember. Go on.
No, I was going to say 92% said yes to the guess. Yep. So yeah, all right, cool. We'll work on that for you guys then. Sorry, go ahead.
And so when I remember when I used to play Guild Wars. Guild Wars, you could have party of 5, so you could have 4 NPCs plus yourself, four friends plus you. And if you had, didn't have a number of players, you could fill those extra slots with NPCs. But I had the NPCs you could earn in game, plus I had 6 or 7 characters. Now that meant I had basically 11 characters that I could choose from to be my NPCs. I could also choose to not have my main character as the leader of a party. I could pick one of my character slots to be the leader of a party and have my usual main as an NPC. I know Chris talked about doing the types of things that they did in Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 and those games. And I know he talked about the microtransactions being like in Guild Wars and the party system, or the dynamic campaigning type things being like Guild Wars. And we kind of Guild Wars 2, and we kind of see that with the Siege of Orisa and the Xeno's threat, the Nine Tails incursion. We see that type of gameplay. So all I can go is go on what Chris has said and look at the past games and know that they are looking at the other games and looking at what they've done and saying, okay, yeah, we like that, we like that, we like that.
They're improving a lot though, but for me, when it comes back to like the actual buying of the packs and stuff for the CCU chains, I think there's only 2 ways I can look at it, right? From a logical standpoint. Realistically, we get most of the starter packages at the sales. So if you are building a ship and you know that it is near sale time, possibly wait. The other thing is the last few good starter packs have come at AIE. They've not come at Invictus, right? So that's another thing to take into account. But I think the other thing you would agree with me is it's too intermittent. The other thing is we've only got 2 potential starters left, which is Crusader and Argo. Okay, we can have outliers, right? We might have something from Krug or something like that, but there's only 2 big companies left, and we worked this out a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? So it's Argo and Crusader. So if we end up getting starters for all the majors, that's go ahead though, Algared, but yeah, that's the last 2.
Yeah, but the other thing they can do is also do vehicles. So we did see a lot of vehicles that had that same type of arrangement.
But we've never seen a vehicle with a yeah. So
tying it back to Vudo's question, So we might get vehicles that can be just LTI tokens.
Yeah.
But so we don't see too many with the game pack and the option to get Squadron 42. I don't think if you've got Squadron 42, there's never a reason to get another one, is there?
No,
unless
really.
You're buying it as a giveaway, because
if you're giving it to someone else, fair enough. Because that's another thing that has come back to Voodoo question. He did actually bring up specifically Squadron 2. There's no advantage to having multiple copies of Squadron 42, at least yet.
At least that I can see.
Real quick though, Todd Kenny, thank you for the subscription with the Prime, and thank you for the gifted sub that went to Hammer VK. I appreciate that on Twitch. All right.
So Hammer VK is probably enjoying that.
Yes, he's always here.
Oh, he will.
Yeah, he's now got a little yellow icon. All right. So, your propaganda video.
Yes, the propaganda video. Well, it's not my propaganda video. I'm not responsible for it. Right. It was passed my way for my opinion, or old man Hurston's opinion.
I've got to change your window over. Just give me a second. Not that one. I know I can't find it. Yeah, that one. All right, there you go. All right, switching us over to the browser. Oh, we're on the right one. Where true power comes. All right, let's have a look.
Total propaganda.
Gentlemen.
Hey guys, Nerdy Gentleman here, and I wanted to say thank you so much for checking out the video. If you look right over there, there's going to be another one should be going through into Ballad of the Space Trucker. Make sure you guys check that song out. If you haven't already, give it a thumbs up and everything like that. Please do it. Until next time, this is the Nerdy Gentleman saying, sing happy, and I will see you all later. Bye, guys.
All I'll say is propaganda. Ooh, propaganda at that.
I actually like that a lot more than I thought I was going to like it, but yeah.
Oh, look, catchy tune, catchy song. But
yeah, I'm always tempted to reach out to him and say, hey, want to do an Inforunners jingle? I don't know. That's pretty cool. I like that. I don't know. What did you guys in chat think? Let us know what you think.
my thought was, what things have they done? Constantly saying the things they've done. What have they done? What have Hurston's done?
What have
Solomon
they done?
Hurston. First Hurston, Solomon. He buys a struggling laser company, which and transforms it into what becomes Hurston Dynamics. Hurston Dynamics have made us fight wars against each other for 500 years. Do you know what one of the main things Hurston Dynamics have done? Developed defense platforms. Developed defense platforms that actually aided humanity fight the Tavaran when the Tavaran attacked. Helped humanity when they were fighting against the Vandal. Because there's defense platforms.
Thinking back to high school, and I'm thinking of my history teacher in grade 10, and I remember it was called Mr. Man, and I remember him standing there and going, "History is written by the victor." That's all I'm gonna say.
History is written by the victor.
So yeah, I think it's one side's perspective.
People complain about the Hurstons, and you look at the Hurston family line. One Hurston had links to Linton Meza, the last Meza, and only because of his military career. One Hurston is responsible for their nasty work contracts, and hey, if you sign a work contract and don't read the fine print, that's on you.
Yeah.
Magda Hurston, who's responsible for the company buying the planet Hurston, did her doctoral thesis on basically, I think she loved Mars bars because it was something like work, rest, and play in a
or a certain writer does,
it was something along those lines with life, leisure, and work in contained for work productivity in contained environments. It was that type of thing. That's her doctoral thesis.
All right.
Do you think any company in the universe of Star Citizen is not using that thesis to maximize their productivity?
Yeah. So if you like that song, it was by the Nerdy Gentleman. Make sure you check him subscription because I think
give him a like.
Yep, a like at the very least.
But also tell them that Old Man Hurston says it's total crap propaganda from Uwu.
I'm gonna actually go listen to some of these other songs, and maybe if he's good enough, or if I can find a style that would suit us, we might see if we can ask him if he wants to help us out with a jingle for. I don't know. Maybe I'll change the intro. Who knows? Which we haven't done in years, but we could do that. That sound effect I made all those years ago, Algared.
Yeah,
that's old as now. I haven't touched it. I haven't changed it in ages. So
yeah, we wipe the dust off every so often, the cobwebs and everything else. But yeah, so a catchy tune, a nice, considering it very, very more country-like. But
All right, so first time chatter in Twitch, Maple Stroop is asking about the Execute Reclaimer. So that was done by Grim Starjump. He put that into that for me because I helped him out with a bunch of stuff. So yeah, a lot of those skins are either thank yous or just recognitions of people, or some people that have passed away even. So they're little thank you tokens from the Starjump team to people that have helped them out. And I helped Grim with a lot of stuff when he was first starting out, but that's fine, as you do, contacts, networking, that type of thing, just helping people. And and I consider Grim a friend. So yeah.
North has said in chat they should re-upload that with my subliminal messages.
Just have Algared's face and him going.
No, I think North is talking about the little line they kept chucking in.
Well, someone might do, like, you could do that as an old man Hurston reaction video. I reckon that'd be funny, and we could do it as a short, Algared. That'd be actually pretty funny. Actually, you should do that 1 minute short video with your phone, and just have it play. We'll have it played in the background, and you could just.
The hard thing is I've got to make sure I get the old man voice to start with. That's why whenever I do old man, it's no. It's that's part of the process of getting old man.
Believe it or not, it was exactly how I did lines for comedy back in the day. I had a line that I always used to say to get into the character voice. So there was a particular bogan I used to do, and I go, "Welcome to Centrelink," and that was my line for that. So yeah, and I could still do it all these years later. So that's exactly the same way. And I know my brother does something with he does an Indian accent for poppadoms, and he always says poppadoms, and he just goes straight into his Indian accent. So yeah, I think it's a very common way to do it.
And I know when I'm doing Old Man Hurston, I'm thinking Jimmy Stewart, and there's one movie in particular I just remember him doing it now, and that's That's the way I
But
kind
it's
of
also become
channel.
it's also become like a staple of the Hurston voice. That now, like, and it's
Nah,
fine.
nah,
It works.
nah, nah. Yeah, no.
He picked a good one because it kind of gives it him a bit of character too. So yeah, it's good. All right.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Stewart is a classic, So if you're gonna take an old Southern gentlemanly style, and even though Jimmy Stewart's not a Southern gent, but he kind of exudes that type of
Yeah, I get
thing.
you.
The only other character I could think of that would have worked for Old Man Hurston, at least from my thought, is Gregory Peck's Atticus Finch, that type of thing. But yeah, so.
Well, maybe I have to become a character for myself. I don't know who I'd do though. Maybe I'll talk to Paul and he can come up with one. You and Paul can come up with one for me.
Paul,
Right.
I think Paulie regrets making, kind of giving voice to Old Man Hurston because he's now just Paulie the barkeep and purveyor of Evercrack.
No, he's Paul Redeemer Shelley, and we need to make that stick. So yeah.
No, execute.
Did you?
It is just Paulie. Paulie is about. He makes a very, very nice Evercrack mix, So.
It was really funny because you know how Voidy Vid did that video when he said Merchantman Shelley? He actually during the week did a apology video, and in the video he actually called him Redeemer Shelley. It's quite funny. You have to see the video, but I thought it was funny. Anyway, all right, next question because we've been all right. Anyway, Monster Avery asks your take on the unannounced ship and the new ways to enter and exit ships from the monthly report. Jeez, actually, maybe we can have a look at that because I have not looked at that. Algared, have you?
So the monthly report was the one that came out
Yesterday, I think it was, wasn't it?
That was the Squadron 42 report, I thought.
No, there's if you're looking at my screen,
new one coming up.
There's a new one right there. I'll switch this over. Hold on.
I know. In the previous one, the November December one, they talked about 2 vehicles in Europe and 1 in LA.
Yep.
And a couple of those were unannounced. So for this month, it'll be good.
Monster Avery, if you're still in chat, can you tell us which section it's under, or anyone that's in chat? Because we obviously haven't looked at this yet, so we're gonna let you guys guide us a bit. Because otherwise, we've got to sit here and read it, and like you guys don't want to. I'm assuming you don't want us to sit here and. Oh wait, art ships. Here we go. Continue work on the small mentioned in last month's report with certain elements reaching LOD completion. That's good. That's really far along. Also began exploring ideas for a variant. What the? Okay. The Argo SRV progressed through the final art, final polish, development of the Crusader Spirit continued. The exterior is shaping up nicely, key forms. Blah, blah. I'm skim reading this, by the way. So, a previous unannounced ground vehicle passed its grey box sanity review for the artwork press kit. All right, so I reckon that's either the Lynx or the X1. What's your takes on that?
Or could be the other ground vehicle they kind of talked about, but hasn't yet come into game. The whatever the other vehicle they're talking about, because I know that.
I don't know what you mean by the other vehicle that they're talking about. The only two that I know that I talked about is the X1 and
not the STV.
Oh, the UTV. Yep, gotcha.
The UTV.
Yep.
It could be a UTV. The only thing that is key is when they say unannounced vehicle, it does not necessarily mean it's a new concept ship. It could be a ship that's been concepted previously that they haven't told us they're working on. So Lynx, as you're saying.
Yep. So that is the Santoki Eye, because they showed us a white box of the Santoki Eye, and it says Alien, and by the way it was being scheduled, I was pretty sure it was coming at Alien Week, so I'm still pretty sure that's coming at Alien Week. I reckon that's the Santoki Eye.
That would be my guess. And if it's not the Santoki Eye, it'll be something they're doing because they either need more graphic language for that ship or...
Yeah. So Stop and Sniff asked the kind of question I was thinking about. He asks, are ships like the UTV considered unannounced still? Well, they haven't said when they're coming out, so I think you've got to think of it more of a announced for sale type of thing.
Yep.
So the Lynx has not been announced for sale, as an example. The X1 has been, so that would technically rule that out. But I think, actually, if I think about it, so yeah, that really does limit it to the UTV and the Lynx, just of the things that we know, unless it is something completely new, which could always be as well. And we also know that from a ground vehicle perspective, that, cool, thank you for ISC, it's dropped, so we can go watch that in a minute, is that... there are a lot more vehicles to kind of come than ships at this point for release, because we know 200 ships and we know 100 vehicles, and I think we're only not even halfway on vehicles, where I think we're down to the, what did we work out? I think me and Badger's got it down to like 19 or something, and this was like 6 months ago. So we're down to, and when we worked it out, like what ships were possible and stuff, it came down to like 7 or 8 that were really not able to work out.
And when they talk 200 ships, that's also ships and variants, isn't it? So,
yeah,
you know, you're looking at that new ship they've got there that they're working on.
Yeah.
Where they're also looking at possible variants. Chink, chink, chink. That count dropping. Even the Galaxy.
Yeah.
That's 3 ships that they knock off if you do the you know, if you consider the modules as being adding a variant. So. Yeah.
All right. Before we quickly move on, is there anything else here in chat that you guys have seen that you think we should shout out to everyone else? Yeah, we know it's out. Thank you for that. That's like the 5th or 6th person that's let us know ISC's out, but we'll watch that in a second. Is there anything else from this monthly report that you guys are seeing? Because we haven't looked through it yet. I've been too busy. I know Algared's been busy.
I was going to say scroll back up to where it talked about Arena Commander, because we are going to talk about Arena Commander.
Yeah, we are. So we'll go through this.
It'll be worth having a look at that bit at least.
Tracks including replace. So I'll just read this bit. It says throughout January, the team focused on polishing the new Arena Commander front end racing tracks, including placing the new Horizon Speedway tracks above the new Planet Green 3 of Ellis system. Wait, of the Ellis system? Oh, wait, so that's okay, yep. Some adjustments were, I was thinking it was like a new planet in game. Oh, wait, no, it's in Arena Commander. I get it now. Some adjustments were also made to the racetracks themselves to suit the new Earth-like atmosphere. The teams also experimented with new loadout selection preview for the front end alongside polishing the style and flow. Work continued on the classic race refactor, with the first version of the new race manager and checkpoint setups being tested and feedback addressed. Actually, just real quick, Algared, I was on a stream with Toy Grubbin, and they were talking about the idea of a ship for setting up, like, dropping beacons. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if it was a ship that could drop the rings and a vehicle that could drop, like, gates? So you could actually just drive along and set up your own racetrack wherever you want.
We have longed for that.
That would be sick. Even if it was something temporary, like an Ursa that did it, you know.
Something that would enable you to drop the racing rings and set them up.
Think of all the emergent gameplay you could do with your friends and stuff just by setting up a little race. You could make, you know, like a 4-gate track, and it's literally just a death style, shoot everyone with guns type thing. It'd be nuts.
Mind you, having said that, all the racetracks we've currently got in the PU were developed without any of those gates.
Exactly.
Without any of those tracks.
But it'll add to it. Anyway,
so,
let me finish this. So optimizations such as
it would make life easier.
Splits qualifying and new analytic data were made alongside improvements to time accuracy. The refactor of both the rounds and the spawn modules continued across Arena Commander and Star Marine. This refactor sees the code drastically improve and brought up to current standards and providing more modularity for new features. Well, that's really good. That means they're going to add to it in the future as well. It also tackles some of the problems areas that prevented expansions of the old system, such as separation, unintended connections to PU characters, validating loadouts, and adding the ability to change the ship selection while... Well, that's a big one. So you don't have to load out and load back in now. You can just change on. That's going to be huge for people.
They've certainly been doing a lot of things to give Arena Commander a lot of love, and you know that is big. I know that we've actually, but not you and I, but another group I'm with, where we've been working on, and it's tied to the exclusives. I'm trying to not throw all my.
I know what you're doing. Yeah, it's fine.
But yeah, so we've actually been raising that question: do we use Arena Commander now, because the tools are now going back to enable that, or do we stay in the verse? So that's one of the discussions we've had. So anyway.
All right. I'll swap it over to this so you can watch Algared. Hold on. Yep. All right, here we go. ISC.
Star Citizen's Dogfight module was first discussed as far back as 2013, showcased at PAX East in 2014, and released to the world as Arena Commander in June of that same year. And since then, It's had an update here and there, but it's been a long, strange trip set under the shadow of larger endeavors like Squadron 42 and the Persistent Universe. And recently, the new Arena Commander feature team was formed. A small but dedicated force of names and faces you might recognize, determined to give the oft-forgotten dogfight module some much-needed TLC, and a new roadmap of features that continues later this year and continues beyond.
The Arena Commander feature team is actually the team that is in charge of, well, Arena Commander. Initially, the Arena Commander was actually owned within sort of the vehicle pillar of the company, and we hadn't had yet a team dedicated to it. This was actually the first game that we had rolled out, the first module, and we had called it the Dogfight module. And from there on out, it has now become Arena Commander. So very important for sort of the hardcore player base that is really, really into especially PvP sort of scenarios. That is really the main place and the main reason why Arena Commander continues to exist, and why it's really important for the company. Now, during the pandemic, we stopped working with Firesprite, so that, of course, had to change plans a little bit. There was those among Firesprite that still wanted to continue to work with Arena Commander, and they had come over to work for us at CIG, and those include, you know, Duncan Bunting. Woo! Now, this was important that we were able to put together a plan that would leverage all the art, all the access to content that we've got from Star Citizen, but be able to apply it within Arena Commander without having to remake everything. Also being able to leverage already game modes that exist to improve them in a much, much better quality of life way, and to be able to set us up to be able to scale Arena Commander into new content. And most importantly is, as we come to Death of a Spaceman, there's going to be things that you want to be able to test out without having to risk your life. So we can't just maintain the mode, we want to improve it and to re-excite people about it. So basically, me and Duncan, we came together and came up with a plan for this year and for next to be able to do that. And we broke that into a couple stages, and one of those stages we want to talk about today as it's imminent.
So Arena Commander, through the years, kind of hasn't had much love as, like, say, the PU Persistent Universe.
Haven't seen Mark Abent in a hot minute.
Haven't seen one of those shirts without holes in it for
Yeah.
a hot minute either.
Those shirts are old now.
Yeah, mine's falling apart.
You know, in the beginning, it was all hands on deck, get that multiplayer, get that system flowing. And then a lot of the resources kind of moved off of that, including myself. I went straight to working on vehicles for the Persistent Universe. So Arena Commander was kind of always that background game where you can play a certain thing, but it was kind of stale in the sense that nothing new has come. What you have now is kind of what we had when I originally played. In fact, when I originally worked on Arena Commander, a lot of those same systems, when I went back to it now, are still there. So it's a lot of the old stuff, which works great, but it's not up to our today's standards.
So as flight modes have changed, we haven't updated the race mode. As combat modes have changed, we haven't really updated the swarm modes. As PvP has changed based on features, we need to keep up with that within Arena Commander. And that's a big reason why I think people don't play it, is that it has become somewhat disconnected from what Star Citizen and the Persistent Universe is. And it's imperative that as a simulation to that it is closer and more accurate to what's going on there, and thus means it has to keep up.
So we've always had these big ticket items, things to aim for, big flagship game modes and such. So with the small team that we've got, our focus and this presentation that we put together when the team was first formed was a revival of Arena Commander, a 3-step process. And the first step that we're experiencing early this year is laying the foundation, where we're replacing a lot of the old, kind of worn, very old code, old data with new updated stuff, so that we can apply new features, new quality of life things, and really bring Arena Commander up to what the quality that you'd expect from Star Citizen.
So where do you start when you want to plan something like this and break up those stages? Well, you start at the start. You start at first impressions. So nobody wants to build what I like to call a castle in the sky. You've got to start by laying foundations and the very first impression of what people are experiencing within that game. So with that comes the front end.
The front end connects everything. It's our lobby system, it's how we get into matches, it's how we connect with friends, it's how we even make our private matches, which we'll have later this year.
One of the most important things that we're going to be able to do is remove all of the flash out of the front end. Now, this is a very, very legacy piece of technology that we had relied on for many years, But over the course of the years, and as the community might be aware, we've already changed over to an internal system called building blocks. What we'd like to do is bring our entire front end up to building blocks. We've brought portions of it, but not Arena Commander at all.
First iteration is going to be a focus on functionality, and we'll be iterating patch to patch to add more things that players have been asking for a number of years.
Yeah, so we're changing all this front end to make it very easy to configure and get into your matches quickly.
The next step is I want to combine Star.
It's a huge difference, Algared.
It is.
That was
Look,
all on one screen too. That wasn't multiple screens. That was one screen.
Yep. And the thing that really makes it like we used to run racing in Arena Commander. We stopped because it was impossible to have a stable platform and get the people who were racing into a race. It was that janky. You just couldn't do it. That's how bad. Like when he's talking about the tools weren't there.
Yeah.
It was so bad you couldn't use it.
Yeah.
That's so yeah.
And Arena Commander into one menu item, which is Arena Commander. Now, nothing's really changed. We've only just given you one button to go into an interface that you still have all the same access that you would have. So you don't have to go into a specific Star Marine sort of front end that would only get you to the given maps, or then a specific Arena Commander front end. You go into the Arena Commander front end and you have access to Star Marine game modes, you have access to Star Marine maps, you have access to Arena Commander game modes, Arena Commander maps, and you have access to all the race modes and race maps.
Now, we're not taking away the Star Marine brand. That's still going to be the maker of these FPS games, but what you'll find now with this new front end is it's all under the Arena Commander simulation module.
So this is really important for us for that first impression, so that one, people know the sheer amount of content and stuff that's actually there, but second, we're also able to update it as time goes on, much easier.
For the past number of years, we've been slowly refactoring some of those old systems to bring them up to date so that we can add new features easily. One example would be the spawning module, which Mark Aben is currently working on.
There's huge potential in Arena Commander. We just have to fix what's there. Potential as in being, Arena Commander's a fast-paced action-based. We get you into the game quick and easy. And if we fix some of the issues like when, loadout customization is a huge one.
Ship loadouts.
I was just thinking, Algared, with what he's saying there, do you think it's got anything to do with Theatres of War? Do you think that them updating this has got anything to, or do you think it's completely separate? I'm just wondering if it's two things
100%.
happening at the same time.
100%. I think it's linked to that. You got to remember that Arena Commander is the in-game, in-universe training pit.
Yeah.
We used to, at one point, way back when, we used to have that we had the sim pods in our hangars, which you would get in, you get into to access Arena Commander.
The only place they appear now is at Microtech, down
That's
near
right.
down near where you buy the Mobiglass thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but they were originally, the idea is that Arena Commander, and I saw one of the comments saying, "Ooh, so we can try out stuff here, Arena Commander, so with Death of a Spaceman, so you can try out." That was always the plan of Arena Commander, so you could actually train and practice. It was something Chris had in Wing Commander. You'd have the training pod where you could go and practice flying your ship and doing missions. This is no different. It's just it's been janky as crap and was useless to you for 90% of the time. And as they said, combat, but as combat changed, it wasn't updated. As racing changed, or flight model changed, it wasn't updated. And so it
Kind of
became
bit disconnected, aren't they?
It became less and less the point. I can remember when it first came out, it was the testing platform for flight models and combat. But as the PU came along, that became where they could do the testing and get more players in and see how it goes. And so the work they were putting in changed because we're getting the same data from PU, where we're getting a lot more data as well. And Arena Commander just dropped to the side as not being needed. But
Shem Pastor said something there, which was about what they said earlier. They were talking about like testing for when Death of a Spaceman comes in, and I think I agree with him, because I thought exactly the same thing when they said it. That is going to be really pivotal down the line, because
it is.
You're not going to want to risk putting yourself, wasting a life, so to speak. So
100%.
You can go in there and even for FPS stuff like tactical and training, like I see a lot of orgs going in there and doing practice runs for hitting other bases, especially if you can. What would be really pivotal is if you could pick a location in game and go, you know, if you had scans or something. Can you imagine how cool this would be? Like you scout, like you send in a scout, like a the black razor or whatever it is, the stealth black razor. I'm forgetting the name, eludes me at the moment. But you send that in, does a bunch of scans, gets the layout of the place. They take that information and data and they go from in-game to in simulation and then do a simulated assault on it. You see where I'm going here? Like how tactically cool that feels to be able to take in-game, almost like real-world data and put it into a simulation. I think that sounds awesome. Well, at least to me it does, but yeah.
But that's what Theatre of the War was effectively doing. It was taking those real-life modules or scenarios, or even taking those both scenarios from from Squadron 42 and drawing them into the game and then enabling you to play them through with your friends. But that's also where your group practice their tactics, and without risk of, we've accidentally dropped that grenade and blown each other up and now we've lost a life.
And you can see everything, like people making their own race tracks. You can see that, you know, they mentioned private matches, so you could literally, you know, you could pick anywhere in game.
Yeah.
Could I realistically take Old Man Hairston to Lawville and fight him in a dogfight? You know, is that a thing that we can do? You know, I'm playing the field here, so to speak. But you get where I'm going. Like, we could actually do things like that if they can do that whole take the game and put it into the simulation thing. Oh boy, they are on a winner, because that'll just go to another level, like with the training stuff. And you know, even in our own org back in the day, they used to run, you know, every week, and I can think of the number of orgs I've been to where they do that they want to do those training things to get that communication going. And it'll be the same thing, even loading in a javelin and practicing how the crew works together.
Yeah, and I think
instead of
as they put the ships, go on.
I was just gonna say, instead of actually having to get in game, travel to wherever you got to go, and that all takes time. Where if you can just all jump into Arena Commander, load it up, and practice. And that,
look, and realistically, that could be one of the ways in which they solve that. Going across and helping a friend, you do it in a sim pod. You know, if they could solve that problem. But how do you then tie that across to helping each other in the verse? That could be different. But
I've actually thought a few times, Algared, it'd be really cool if they, like, you know how we talked about agent smithing or like dark matter, and I know they don't have robots in the game, but would it have been really cool if you could have had a way to get in a sim pod and you control a robot? So it's like it's not an AI, it's like a mind controlled robot, but you can tell it's not a player that's actually there. And the disconnect there would be their rep comes with them, but their, like, any form of XP or currency just goes to their friend or something like that, you know, and then the friend has to give it to them or something like that. I don't know. I've toyed with lots of ideas like that. I don't think any system they've really mentioned is 100% perfect, but we'll see where that goes.
And I don't think most of the systems they've talked about for certain the way you'd help your friend in the PU have even gone beyond that idea. They're just stuff they're putting on the planning board. They may have more details that they've worked out themselves, but certainly I don't think we know them.
Yeah,
but Arena Commander was always part of that key aspect of training and practice, because life matters.
All right, let's go back to the video. We've tangented as you and I tend to do. All right, let's come back. All right, here we go.
Selecting your ships, rentals, etc. are
one thing really quick. I don't know if you've noticed, but the video, like the actual vehicles and the actual Marines, heaps crisper and way smoother because they've got rid of that flash stuff. Anyway,
a little bit cumbersome, and it's not very easy to do things like find other players for the game modes that you want on the servers that are going to be the best experience for you. So what we are planning to do is to make that experience a lot more user-friendly, so that you could.
Nope. I don't know what's going on there.
Lobby support, whether that's things like private matches, which is an imperative thing. We've got to get over to building blocks so we can implement private matches back for you guys, which you've asked for quite some time here.
Since we're also revamping a lot of our core systems, one of the things we want to change was this thing called a ban list. A long time ago, we have this kind of list of things that say you can't use this in Arena Commander, or you can't use this ship in Arena Commander. One of the biggest things we changed is make it very tagged based in a way that design can go, if I want to use this ship in this mode, I just have to tag these things and bam, it's used for that mode. So we want to give tools to design to say, you could use this, you can use this, and we can add an item or a weapon in a few seconds rather than a few minutes.
What we don't want people is guessing or having to really dig around to figure out what it is they want to be able to do. We want to guide them through that. So it's really important that we do make those front-end updates so that our first impression and our foundations are sound within this game.
100%. I've got to say,
one of our maps within Arena Commander is Dying Star. So, you know, building better battles, as Jared likes to put it. How are we going about that? Well, there was a couple updates. We had already made quite a large visual update, even during the pandemic, and as partnered with sort of the legacy team. But now with the internal team, we wanted to take some further steps.
So last year, Dying Star underwent an artistic update, and it was quite visually stunning, very pretty. A lot of artists worked very hard on that. Unfortunately, the things that made it very, visually interesting, made for not so great gameplay, especially in the arena of like combat. One of the major issues that we got from our community is that it was just too bright. And so you couldn't see where you were going or where other players were.
Gameplay-wise, we kind of missed the mark. There was a lot of heavy fog, things that made players actually motion sick. So we got a lot of feedback from the community, and we addressed those things straight away as soon as we came on board with the Arena Commander feature team.
Some of the things that we did to fix it were to reduce the opacity and the density of the really bright yellow gas cloud that is predominant in the level. That greatly helped to reduce the overall brightness of the level.
He went into the map, he reduced the density of the fog, size of the particles, and the way that the light affects the player's visor.
There were some performance issues with the level itself, and that was a result of...
Can I see shirt Algared?
Yep.
Really like that.
Someone in chat was also saying this is good for lore because they can put you into historical situations. That's exactly what Theatres of War was doing as well. So
100%. You can go
100%.
back and kind of like going back and where we play, you know, Call of Duty World War II or historical. No, 100%. Go back
I
and
wouldn't say they teach us history. They mean crap.
You know what I mean, but you could go back and play a battle with the messes, or you know, you could do a Tavaran War type thing. Yeah, 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
But the other thing that they do is like Dying Star is not in Stanton; it's in a different system. So what work they do on those systems and those places in game that they have in Arena Commander, that's actually work that goes into the system where it comes from. So it's not just sitting idle and it's not having a use elsewhere. It's actually working on developing those star systems and putting the content in. So when you go to the star system that Dying Star's in, I can't remember it offhand, you will see that space station, you will see that star, you'll see that planetoid, you'll see all of that stuff. So it's a win-win. So
Edgelord.
The actual space station assets being used to generate the space station that was in Dying Star. And so our engineers discovered that there was actually AI within the closed-off hangar. Since they had no place to go, it caused a little bit of havoc in those levels.
How did you feel the first time you heard about the AI?
When I heard the AI, I was like, well, that explains it.
While it's completely invisible to the player, it really tanked our FPS.
So while these first Dying Star improvements that you're seeing are mainly performance related and visuals as well, we'll be coming in right behind that with some exciting gameplay improvements that you guys should stay tuned for. Oh, geez, that's maybe too much. Was that too much? So I talked about two sort of core gameplay elements. I talked about sort of the flight and fight, and then I talked about FPS. But what I haven't really addressed is racing, which is flight, period.
Racing is a dangerous sport, especially when you've got 6 degrees of freedom, you're flying around a hunk of a ship, you're probably going to die. So to perfect your skills, you need to do it in Arena Commander.
Our race mode in Arena Commander is one of those modules that were kind of built in the early days when I started working here. And a lot of the core infrastructure is roughly the same of what we had originally.
So the New Horizon maps, they've been in since the implementation of racing, and they've been pretty much untouched. There's been some bug fixes, some quality of life improvements.
We hadn't updated those race maps in a long time. A great example was, you know, the current race map that was in place, it looked like it was an atmosphere, but the way it actually flew was as if we were completely zero G.
So what we've done now is we've got the real planet, Green 3 of the Ellis system, which is an Earth-like, beautiful, holiday-like planet, where the races will now take place in atmosphere where they should be.
So they any of the benefits we get from the racetrack being on a real planet, such as gravity and atmosphere, actually affect the race now.
So they've built part of Ellis. They've built part of the Ellis system because they've actually taken the planet and put it in. That's just again to build on what I was saying not long ago. It's actually not. They're not doubling up on work. They're actually going to be able to reuse those assets in the systems that they're down the line when they bring them into the PU. So,
yeah, as I said, all those tools will come to bear. And we'll get a lot of planets coming out quicker than people realise. I think that's going to be really quite a bit of a shock to people when it actually does start to roll out. But
yeah, when they start rolling those systems out and the worlds out, you're going to go, oh crap, wow, they're doing it quick.
Yeah, that's it.
Can you fly down?
You can fly down to the planet if you want. You're not going to complete the race.
So our arena could get down to the planet in the past.
Sorry,
I said it used to be a challenge if you could get down past the ceiling in the racetrack before you could do it. Sometimes you could break past and get down and fly down to where the planet was, but there was nothing really there. It was just that you could do it. But now you can. You're not going to finish the races, he says, but you can go down to the planet. That's pretty cool.
Commander team is very small. We actually don't have artists, but one place that we have countless number of locations, incredibly beautiful locations, is the PU. It just makes sense. Take those locations from the PU and put them in Arena Commander. Some might think that might be a difficult task. It's actually not. The designers have worked out a perfect workflow along with Mark, making some
that adds what we said to about the simulation stuff, if they can pull that off.
adjustments to how we spawn object containers, and we're able to take PU locations into Arena Commander pretty fast.
Right now I'm working on is taking racetrack from the PU and transferring them into the Arena Commander. So what I do is basically, with the PU getting racetrack, I would take those racetracks, and with the new race refactor that we have, I can transfer them into the Arena Commander.
Whatever you see in PU is what you see in AC. So whenever we make improvements to things like the actual track that you see in PU, we get the benefits of those improvements. The big benefit is, though, that since they are equal, you get to practice in AC the skills that it takes to become a quick racer and really excel at those tracks without the consequences of like permanent death.
So we can do that for racing, we can do that for
waiting for your ship to respawn, or
it just speeds up the time, like I said earlier.
It just fits into what they always said Arena Commander was for. So
combat, we can do that for dogfighting locations like Jericho Station, which will also be coming with this patch.
Now, there was some inspiration that was brought definitely from the community, and you know, myself and Duncan had seen a lot of the messaging that was out there. There was a super active community within racing, and they were basically setting up all the new structure for themselves. And it always seemed to be like a very obvious thing that we could do to support this was to be able to bring PU level type content and tracks into Arena Commander to fulfill that content. And since the time that we had made racing so many years ago, we've since gotten planets, we've since gotten atmospheric flight, we've gotten a bunch of different flight modes. So racing needs to keep up with basically the rest of
Algared, we're gonna have to do a Starfarer race.
The game to make it relevant to everything that's going on within the persistent universe, we need to bring persistent universe locations, especially great racetracks that the community has come up with, that we have come up with, into Arena Commander itself, so that we can deliver that to you in a more concise 30-minute session that you could do that practice with, but it be completely relevant to the larger existence of the persistent universe. So we take those locations into Arena Commander so that those are much more accurate and much more relevant to what you're doing.
Overall, I'm so happy with the progress the Arena Commander team has made. We went from the very small team with a lot of passion, and we've got a pretty solid plan here on how we can revitalize Arena Commander throughout this year. We're going to be committed to improving Arena Commander throughout the year, throughout the next year. We're targeting 12 new racetracks, including the 3 you're familiar with from the New Horizons Speedway. We are adding a new dogfighting map, Jericho Station, and we are targeting a lot of quality of life improvements, reworks to some vital systems that you may not see changes on the surface, but they are vital behind the scenes for us to make more changes throughout this year.
So now you've seen what the Arena Commander feature team is up to, and we thought it was important that we came to the community and talked about our plans a little bit. Now, I've learned my lesson. I'm not about to give, 4 out there dates or too much expectation in place, but we did want you to know what the plans are and that we are actively working on it right now. So you can expect that, you'll see some great updates. And one really important thing that we've actually put in place as well is that we've discussed with our release planners. We've now got a separate patch notes for Arena Commander. So Arena Commander is going to be reported just a little bit alongside Star Citizen, but not embedded within the patch notes, so that it's a little bit easier for you guys to see exactly what's happened with the Arena Commander patch to patch. Because though we've talked about some specifics in this, there's lots of little things that, aren't worth necessarily talking about on video, but bugs that are fixed that, hey, maybe bothered people for years that have been addressed since then. So we're really happy to be able to talk to you guys about what's going on with Arena Commander feature team, and look forward to the rest of the year.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that Arena Commander is finally getting the front and back end fixes needed to add more ships and return things like private custom matches. That the existing racing modules are finally getting remade with the same atmospheric physics as the PU, and that each one of the new PU racetracks will make their way into Arena Commander when the first new drop is released later this year. Now, don't forget that the Lunar New Year festivities are coming to an end, so don't miss out on your last chance to participate if you haven't already. And check out last week's Star Citizen Live for even more information about the upcoming Alpha 318, and then keep your eyes on the RSI website and socials for info on its forthcoming release. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all here next week.
All right, are you there?
I am. No, I just got to say, hey, Paulie, good to see you here today.
I had an unexpected cancellation of school, so I could come join y'all for at least a little bit audio-wise.
You can join us on camera if you want. Camera one.
I am not prepared for camera.
that means no pants, right? I got it.
That means no clothes.
Oh wow!
No, Paulie.
That's a sign of Paulie we've never seen.
That's why I don't want to show it to you. Yeah,
Paulie, I've warned you about mixing, drinks with the Yule girls. You got to be careful.
They make strong stuff.
Especially when you're mixing Evercrack, so.
Yeah.
I take it you haven't had a chance to watch ISC then.
I just finished watching it.
We just
myself,
finished as well. So yeah, that was interesting. Some couple of cool things that come out of that we were saying it'd be really cool if you could go into say the example I gave was the stealth razor. You fly over an enemy's base, scan it, get all the details. Excuse me, a bit of indigestion. Take that data, put it into Arena Commander, and then you could practice assaulting the base.
Maybe that might be like
down the line.
Way down the line.
Yeah, way down the line. But the concept is still really cool. You could set up really weird things like how you can't really do fights in certain areas. So I could go and fight Old Man Heston in Lawville. Actually.
If I set that scenario up, then yes, you could.
And then someone said historic fights Tavaran War stuff, or fighting some epic fight the end of the messes or something like that. So historical stuff as well. That'd be really cool, you know. So yeah.
But that's theatres of war, and that's the type of stuff they were planning. My understanding is that's what they were planning for theatres of war. It would be an add-on to what you would do in Arena Commander. Arena Commander has always been that sim you practiced or honed your skills, because Death of a Spaceman is so important. It's one of those intrinsic things, and you don't want to risk racing when you don't know how to race, where you blow up because you die.
And that was the other thing too, Paul, and they're mentioning in chat too. Yeah, Theatres of War seems heavily linked and likely now too, based on that as well.
Am I? Was I right or was I right? People were talking shit about it when I was like, you pay attention to the Arena Commander team. They got something up their sleeve.
No, you're on the same page as us. We said as well. We all talk in the background. So yeah,
you look at the.
I put it on record. I put it on record, and I do want several. All I'm saying is that if it happens, which I even still don't know if it's going to actually happen, there's a lot of people who are going to owe me subscriptions. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, right.
Look, I haven't heard them say Arena Commander is coming into.
Yeah,
sorry, I haven't heard them say that Theatres of War is coming into Arena Commander, but the way they always described it, it was obvious it was seen as part of it. Are we going to see them soon? No, but is it coming? 100%.
I could see a drop by the end of this year.
Yeah,
that was my point. I can see a drop the first version by the end of the year.
Yeah, because normally with game development, you've kind of got to look at a reason for why. Like, why is it sat dormant for so long? It's not just like, oh, we feel like we need to update this, like what they said in the video. It's more likely they're updating it because something else is coming. It's far more likely,
And if you look at what Arena Commander was, and then you had Theatres of War, they were using two different sets of
entirely different ways of doing
bringing this one up to where the standard it's needed. Oh, that's going to mean this one's up to standard. Now we can mesh them together. But they also talked about Jericho Station.
Yeah, so they've talked.
That is, Xeno Threat.
Yeah.
Well, I just linked you a video that we watched earlier. It was a really cool song someone did about the Hurstons. I think you should watch it. It was really good. I enjoyed it. And why I've got you...
Hurston totally thinks it's uwu propaganda crap. Saying how bad the Hurstons are.
Yeah, he basically, I was trying to listen to the song the whole time, and he was just commenting all the way through it, ruining it for me. But no, it's fine. Just teasing.
Hey,
the other thing, Paul, why I've got you here is I'm going to corner you. Are you good for next weekend, the 11th?
Yes, I am.
Yes,
I already said yes.
Oh, really? I missed it.
He did respond in the chat.
Oh, like what, 2 weeks later, but that's fine. Yeah, and I confirmed with Loken as well, so we're all good. So all of us are coming.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I may have to dip out a little early, but yeah, I'll be there for a little.
All right. So what we're talking about there is the tier list show. It's taken that long to get organized that we're all like a month late. But yeah, so that's so we've got everyone coming now, hopefully, so we get everyone there.
I'll just say our tier list show is like a wizard. It's never late. It comes when it's supposed to.
And it's hectic as hell. Or chaotic.
Oh yeah. It is the closest you're going to get to an Inforunners convention.
Yes.
With all of us together just shit talking. So
yeah.
And I play the bad guy every time because I've got to wrangle them all like a rodeo. And then I'm trying to keep the time down because the other thing is like
we need to get the time down because Paul needs to go early. So
and that's a part of it. So there are people that are like going, no, just go as long as you want. Well, it's not that simple because people have got places to go and places to be. And you got to remember we're dealing with 4 corners of the world. So give an example at this one. Space Tomato is going to be starting at 11 p.m. So he's ready to go to bed. He's already tired, So if we go for 2 hours, he's just going to be absolutely exhausted. So
we're coming from Turkey, UK, Australia, US.
Yep.
All probably East Coast, West Coast. So yeah.
Yep.
You name it, we're coming from it. So
yeah. So it's always a really hard one to get, and that's why I do it so far out because we just got to get a date that it works for everyone.
But it is also a lot of fun, at least from our perspective, anyway.
Yeah, and there's also a bit of socialization before and a bit after because we don't get to hang out like that in a big group very often at all. It's always disconnected when we can make it. So yeah.
And so, if you do want to see the social aspect beforehand, if you're a Patreon at star runner level or higher, you actually get to be a fly on the wall before we start recording. So
yep. And then Endeavor and up actually get to listen to the whole thing as well and watch
Yep.
it. So yeah. All right.
That's right. So
Algared,
anyway,
do you want to talk
given-
about now your little
yeah, I
project?
was going to say, given we've just had ISC talking about racing and all the other stuff, we have an exclusive. We have an exclusive. Well, I think just play the video and there you go. Krux Cup 2953. It's starting. It's on. Let's watch and enjoy.
All right, I'm going to switch you guys over though, so it's going to take a second. Change window. All right, so this is what Algared's been working on. Here we go. A few different classes in China. The Herald only one would be kind of cool.
Well, that's the A Crux. The Herald only is because it dominates the track. It is seriously the fast. It is the fastest racer in game.
Yeah.
Now, you may have led people astray by giving them the impression I worked on the video.
No. I didn't say you worked on the video.
No,
I said on the...
because you worked on it.
Yeah.
You could have given. That's why I said.
Yeah, Algared's the best editor I've ever seen. You know.
Yeah. That was EchoBit who did the video, and he does a lot of that stuff. He is an absolute gem.
No, I've talked to him a fair bit recently. We've been catching back up.
But
so yeah.
Krux Cup in flying through the tunnels using the Ahumani track. Now, this is really interesting. The Ahumani track is not one of the tracks that are going into 318. CIG looked at it, but they didn't put it in because it's an endurance race. It's a longer track. It's a
Oh, lost to with lag.
Nope, we lost him.
He'll be back in a flurry. You watch; it happens every time. Just comes like, as you'd know if you've worked.
They've put in the time trial tracks.
Yes.
When they put it in, there's a track.
You're back. It's all right,
You're
Algared.
back.
We just lost the
That's
video.
okay.
You're back. So yeah. So you
I
were talking about
deliberately
you're talking about the Horizon track. So they're not putting it in because it's too long. When is it going in later, or what's the go there?
Well, not at the moment, but when they were putting in the time, there is an Horizon time trial track.
Right.
And when they did put that in, one of the markers actually blocked the Ahumani track and made it impossible for reclaimers and the bigger ships to actually go through that track. So yes, Execute, you were actually saying, oh, we need to do a Starfarers race. You can race Starfarers in the Krux Cup.
No,
so you really need to enter.
I remember back to when we used to. So back in the very early days of PO, there was these 3 rings, and we used to do this like figure 8 type of configuration and race Starfarers, and it was just extremely fun because they're so big and so fat. They've got the most insane drift you've ever imagined, and if you stuff it up, you just crashed into Port Alisa. So it was just this small little funny race, and I remember we just did 3 laps, but I've always remembered it because it was just so funny, because it was so weird. And you know, that's a challenge I'll put out to some of those low flyers out there. You want to do an impressive low flyer video at speed? Give me a Starfarer, because I think it's next to impossible. You know, so if you want to show your talent, do something radically different, like a Reclaimer or a Starfarer, something that's really hard to fly at speed and low. You know, anyone, and I don't want to say anyone can go, you know, fast and low, but you go fast and low and hard to maneuver, that's the next level up again, I think, in my opinion. But yeah.
But that's fine. The key thing they did is the designers actually went back in and they moved the assets they'd put into that sprint track to unblock the Ahumani track for those larger ships.
So I think that's another thing that's been a problem for the Krux Cup is Arena Commander being so kind of out of date, because that actually came before things like the Daymar Rally. But because the Daymar Rally was in game, it was kind of able to progress with the kind of production of the game, where Arena Commander's been left behind, and as such, Krux Cup was left behind a little bit.
Yeah.
So now with this Arena Commander movement, do you think there's going to be a new pickup for Krux Cup?
Well, that's one of the things we've talked about. Now, Krux Cup was originally an Arena Commander because when Krux Cup started, Arena Commander was all we had. We didn't have the PU. There was only Arena Commander.
Yeah.
And so we ran Krux Cup in Arena Commander, but it got so janky you couldn't organise your groups. The groups would crash. It was just a nightmare. And so when we were able to get it into the PU, we moved it into the PU when it was stable enough for us to do that.
Do you know if they're going to allow spectators? Because I remember that was a big thing from back in the day. Actually getting it streamed out to people was a pain in the butt too. So do you know anything about that at all yet or not?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I do think I think I heard there was an element where they would enable that, but I'd be speaking from a hat.
Yep.
I'd like to see that, and it could be just me imposing my hopes and dreams.
No, I think it's very valid. If they had a way to output it out of the game somehow, that would be really advantageous. So yeah,
but
and it'd be good for future Star Marine matches and things down the line as well. So yeah.
So that was a big thing. So in terms of, to answer your question, will Krux Cup go back to Arena Commander? That's one of the things we're discussing. One of the things that we always planned or wanted to do was actually have Krux Cup in the PU. We always saw racing as being endurance. So Gentleman Jez, who is one of the people who love racing and kind of was a spark under everyone. He does the 24-hour, esport racing. So he's into that endurance racing. He's into those long races. And so that's the type of thing was where we always planned and always wanted to go. So and that's down the track. Yes, we will hopefully one day do a 24-hour race or a 6-hour race.
So is the main difference between the Daymar Rally and the Krux Cup that the Krux Cup is really kind of ships and the Daymar Rally is vehicles? Is that the kind of big difference between the two, you would say?
That would definitely be the biggest difference. Like, if you go Krux Cup, unlike every other race, you cannot complete the Krux Cup in most ships unless you go and refuel.
Yeah. Because
you'll run out of fuel and
so you're going to have that pit mentality type stuff where you're going to have a staff error or something else that comes down the line as well to refuel vehicles and stuff.
So if you do the Aurora Classic, the Auroras can do 3 laps before they need to refuel. You try and do a 4th lap, you will run out of fuel and you will need to be rescued.
So a good team behind you. So it's not just a one-person event. It is a...
So at the moment, yeah, it's certainly going to build that way. And that's where we're heading. But some of the mechanics aren't quite there yet.
Paul, do you reckon we should do an Inforunners team?
I think Al's already doing one, isn't he?
Our old man Al is already going in as an Aurora competitor.
Yeah.
In the Aurora Australis team. But if you're into racing, if you're someone who even thinks they're into racing or likes flying big ships, this is a race that's worth doing. Go to cruxcup.com. I think we're updating the things for practice matches. If you go to the Discord channel or you go to that channel and then join the Krux Cup Discord, you'll actually see all the practice and time trial things that are there, so you can learn the track.
Thank you for the raid, Angry PC Tech, with the 39 viewers. Welcome in. Algared, I was gonna say, I just had an idea. Have you considered doing like a content creators like celebrity race like they do at Bathurst? I don't know, that's an Australian thing for the people that don't know what we're talking about, but do you know what I'm talking about, Algared? Where they do that?
Yeah, I think there's the Bathurst 12-hour this weekend with
yeah.
I saw it on the news with some fancy dancy European racer who was here for the...
Yeah, so they it's usually like 3 laps at Bathurst, so it's not the endurance race. So there's a race called the Bathurst 1000 here for people that don't know what's going on. and they basically do 1,000 laps at this racetrack. It's probably the most famous race in Australia, but they have a celebrity one beforehand and they do about 3 laps. So I was thinking, what if we have a content creator one at Krux Cup, like they kind of did for the Daymar? You know how they did at the Daymar rally? They had a lot of people going in that.
I would have to talk to the guys, because the normal Krux Cup does normally go for an hour, so have to talk to them and see what we can swing. But hey,
well, just make it something, you know, maybe it's one of the Arena Commander tracks or something like that, and pick one and see if you can. I don't know how many people can have an Arena Commander or whatever, but maybe you can do it in there because it's quicker to set up, obviously, and just get something quick where you can get content creators in, hopefully draw some people in, and they stay for the other races.
Hey, look,
hopefully.
I'm always happy to try and push anything that builds content and gets.
How do you reckon that would go, Paul? A content creator race? Would that go?
I think people would love to do that. People would love to. It reminds me of Ninja Warrior. I don't know if you all have seen that one. Yeah. There's actually a name for it's like Shikasi's Castle or something like that. Takashi's Castle is the name of it. Was in Japan.
Yeah, we could come up with
people used to do that all the time, where like they'd have celebrities who show up to run the courses just as a publicity stunt, that kind of thing. Yeah,
I think I've already got the name. It's the Krux Content Creator Challenge, CCCC. And you know what I'm like with alliteration, so that's got to stick.
No, just the Krux Creator Challenge.
Oh, there we go.
The CCC.
Yeah, it works as well. Scott said something too, Algared, and I know you've talked about this, so I'm bringing it up. He said, Scott said, "What about PvP?" So you told me about a particular race that I thought was. Yeah. So
if you go to the Krux,
be right back.
Kruxcup.com, and click on tracks, there's one called or races as Apex or Scarlet Apex. Scarlet Apex is a similar endurance race, a slightly shorter track.
Oh, we've lost him again. He'll be back in a flurry as he does with his next connection. But I'm pretty sure the spin on the PvP.
I'll wait till we come back.
He's back. You're back. Go ahead.
Yep. So there is Scarlet Apex. Scarlet Apex is currently in the asteroid belt near Grimhex, and that track is distortion weapons. So we already have that race running. The second year of Scarlet Apex will be, I think, around June.
Yeah.
So again, yeah.
So the cool thing about that, though, Algared, is because it's distortion weapons, you're not actually killing them, so it's not a death race, so to speak, but it's one where you disable them momentarily. So there's this kind of cat and mouse type of thing. But I actually suggested,
and because you're flying around the asteroids, you do get big bad booms. So yeah.
But I actually suggested to Algared it'd be really funny if they kind of did a death style race where they had these like Grimhex style pirate people, and they're like, "Welcome to Death Race," or whatever, you know, something like that, where it is a race to the death, and so it's the endurance part becomes the last person left, almost like a destruction derby, but on a very small track.
Well, that is almost the effect of it. Not only do you have to worry about running out of fuel, you have to worry about damage that you take from shots. You have to worry about flying into an asteroid. You have to worry about. So it's a slightly different endurance race, but
it'd be really cool if the gates, right? You'd have to. So this would only work down the line, right? But if the gates gave you a limited amount of ammo, so like every time you go through a gate, it gives you like, I don't know, 20 ballistic bullets or something like that. And so basically you have to keep racing to keep up the shooting, you know, and then it's
no, you see what you do is you go into pits and
you could, but then that stops the action. That stops the action too. And then what happens? Does someone shoot you while you're in the pits? So
no, well the pit line would be free, but as you're coming in and out, you know, that's when you're.
I know where you're going, but I'm talking about keeping the action up. So my original concept of it was like, say, hurricanes or something like that, because then you've got one pilot and one gunner, so it's this team event where you're actually trying to take other people out. But that'd be way down the line. You probably would have to do your version first before.
For Scarlet Apex, I was actually hoping, or would have liked to have entered with a hurricane last year, because I actually thought a hurricane with a gunner dedicated to that role would actually be a killer team. I can't remember what the best killer team was, but there were a few. I know there were a couple of people who did take that line. So,
and you could have some different classes as well, because you could get some weirder ships like the Tanner and stuff like that. So any of those 2-player, you know, Super Hornets, any of those, the Gladiator would be an interesting one. Any of the ones where you got two, you know, like a gunner and stuff would be really interesting, and just to see what the different mechanics are like as well. Especially even down the line, like think of things like the Sentinel with the EMP missiles and stuff. So if they get behind you, they could literally distort you out of the thing. So yeah.
Now, I will say that for Krux Cup this year, the prize pool is over $6,000 of ships and other stuff. So
do you know any of the ships that they're like what some of the big ones are that they're giving away or anything like
that?
Yeah.
So we do have sponsorship from CIG and others, and some of the ships that are included are the M2, the Star. So the M2, the Aquila, I'm trying to remember the third big ship, the C1s, C8Rs, so, you know, quite a few big ships I'd have to go through and dig through. There will be another video coming out soon with those prizes listed. But
interesting suggestion there from Twitch chat from Mr. Stunner, who says, will there be a redeemer only category to the content creator challenge so Paul can participate?
I hate all of you. I hate all of you.
That actually, that would be a good ship though for that kind of death race style one as well, because you got 3 people there. You got ones that can only shoot forward and back. That could be really interesting. Like redeemer only race.
Well, you should check out the Scarlet Apex and see if there's a redeemer ship able to enter. I can't say whether that's there or not, but
that might also be a thing for the Krux Creator Challenge too. Like if you do a celebrity race, it's a weird ship, so like everyone in Starfarers or something like that, because it's a bit of comedy release and fun. So yeah.
So Krux Cup, if you're into any form of racing, if you want you find the sprint a little bit too mundane, do the Ahamani track. It literally takes you through the 4 industrial platforms that are around Orison. You have to fly beneath them and under them, so Kaplan, Shimmery...
Algared Starfarers with distortions.
Milford and Providence. You go through underneath each of those platforms.
Can you imagine the chaos, Algared? Sorry, I know I'm just derailing what you're
I
saying,
know you
but
are.
it'd be funny as. Sorry.
So yes, each of those, and you can take any ship. At the moment, I'm assuming that 318 will come out before Krux Cup hits. But at the moment,
say that's a fair chance.
At the moment, in the PU, the only ship that would have to not be in is the 890 jump, and it's not because we don't want it in, it's because it can do 3 or 4 laps before it needs to refuel, and then when it goes to dock to refuel, it loses the ability to do anything. You can't refuel it, you can't re-repair it, you can't move after you've docked it, just gets reclaimed.
All right. Since you're here, Paul, if you guys got any more questions, because Paul's not usually here, so if you've got any questions you want to check at Paul, or questions that you'd like to know from all 3 of us, or ones that would go between us, feel free to hit with some of those.
Yeah.
Ask lore questions so we can subject execute to some more education.
That's right.
Hey, you forget I started with lore. I think you guys forget that a lot. I started with lore in this, so yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
You're the one who kept telling us I'm the lore noob. I don't know the lore. So it is your fault that we do.
I just didn't. Hey, look, it's like I started out and I didn't follow up with my homework. That's all it is, right? Leave me alone. And you guys are both teachers. You should know that from students by now. Anyway.
Yeah, we're not upset, X. We're just disappointed.
That's just like my mom. Yeah, thanks.
You had so much promise.
Yeah.
The potential is there, but you just had to fritter it away. That's all.
That's right.
But I do want to follow up with one thing about like watching the Inside Star Citizen. The other thing to remember, like why they're so focused on Arena Commander, is likely because every single copy of Squadron 42 comes with Arena Commander.
Yep. And that's something we've talked about a few times. That Theaters of War is more than likely the multiplayer component initially for Squadron 42 people, because that'll then encourage them to go buy Star Citizen.
it'll make them buy the access to the PU because they want to do both.
Yeah. I can almost guarantee you that will be the new branding. They'll remove Arena Commander and call it Theaters of War, and just as one big umbrella term, because that's where they already started that.
Actually, I think it's going to go the other way. I think they're going to drop Theaters of War and call it Arena Commander, because there are too many games called Theaters of War, and it's just not original enough. I think he's called it Theaters of War because that's what they called it in World War II. But if you actually go Google Theaters of War, there's like 10 other games for it, where Arena Commander is. It's bespoke.
It's a play on Wing Commander.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Arena Commander is a much more original title.
I just think it's going to be the module. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, theater,
Arena Commander shirt.
Theater and arena are a similar word. So Arena Commander, I think, works just as well as Theaters of War, personally. But yeah. All right. Next question, Algared. I'm going to refresh you if you want to read that next question.
Yep.
Please.
Next question is from Dan Little. Dan Little said, and this is kind of a lore question type thing. Should the Starfarer Gemini go on sale during Invictus?
Yes.
Yes, because it's the military variant. Yes.
And they'll probably sell the Starfarer as well.
Yeah,
just because they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
same with the Mist. They sell the Freelancer Mist, even though it's not technically in the military, but it's a combat variant. So.
Yep. That's exactly right. So yeah, anything that's combat related will come in Invictus. That's a good safe bet.
So Ace Hambone has a question for each of us. It should be a very short question.
Famous last words.
Ace Hambone says, what is or will be your preference gameplay style in Star Citizen?
So you and I kind of mentioned this during the week, didn't we? We're probably going to have to be generalists or jack of all trades, because we'll probably end up pivoting into guides and stuff once the game comes out quite a bit. And we'll probably bring in people that are really into specific professions to deep dive. So, for example, those of you that met John Citizen would probably bring him in to help us do guides for mining, as an example.
But
yeah,
my thought is that if you were looking at where you usually would gravitate in terms of play style, knowing the types of games you play, you'd probably be more an FPS, GPU, run around rifle or combat-y type aspect.
Actually, what I'm really looking forward to, and what really got me into this game, is the multi-crew. You know, I'm always looking for people at the moment. It's only just getting stable enough to do it, but I really want to get out there in the Reclaimer and do some group stuff. But obviously, when I jump on as Australian, half the people are damn asleep. So, but yeah, I'm keen to get on there and do some more Reclaimer stuff. I got a little bit of it. I was in a stream with Crunchy, and then the guy got in the ship, he couldn't fly and crashed into a rock, so I never actually got a chance to, other than flying, to actually do it. But yeah, so that's something I want to do.
You're looking forward to the salvage gameplay and flying big ships and being on crew, Paul?
Well, it's the first real multi-crew, though. Like up until now, we've only had, like, the Mole was really driver and laser, and that's it. And this has got
this is the one that gives you the more roles. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're into that multiplayer. Paul? What about you? What are you looking forward to?
Probably do a little bit of that, but my main focus has been and probably always will be smuggling and kind of more role play stuff. I like to do my bar streams, but I'd like to do that more just kind of regularly, just to light RP stuff. But smuggling as my main profession is the way to pay the bills, because it involves flying, subterfuge.
Can I ask a follow-up question? What's your favorite smuggling ship?
Okay, so my favorite ship at the moment is the Cutlass Red. But
for smuggling,
long term,
yes.
The reason why is because it's small enough to reach in most places. You can get it, at least you could get it really decently stealthed, so it would be hard to see. It has easy access, and plus you also have some, some other things. So most of the Cutlass series,
when people shoot you and injure you, you can repair yourself. Yeah.
What about long term? Is there a better one? Because that's not technically a smuggling ship.
Yeah, well, there's no real smuggling. Every ship is a smuggling ship if you work hard enough.
I mean, more like the ones that have like. So for me, I think there's really kind of, is it 4? I'll have to do math, but you've got the MSR.
The ships.
Yeah, I've got the MSR. I've got the Retaliator and the Raelian and the Taurus. They're the 4 that I think of when I think of smuggling. So
those would work. The issue is that all of them are huge. Because smuggling, you're not going to be trading in huge volumes. You're going to be in much smaller volumes. You may end up with less than 10 SCU right now, and I think in the future, I don't think that's going to change that much. So if you are a smuggler, any ship that's huge is going to, unless you're going a long distance, is going to be a liability.
So the starter ship from Crusader, smuggling
would be perfect. Yeah,
it would work so well.
And well, I think if you're an Inforunner, if you're doing that, I think one of the best ones would be the Saber Raven.
Yeah,
because
but I mean,
it is an Inforunning ship. That's what it was.
Yeah,
sold at. It does have storage containers. So
that's my point. Is that like for instance, the honest to god best ship right now, because I've been doing guides on this, that a lot of people don't realize, is the 315P. It is the best smuggling ship in game. It has 12 SCU of cargo, which is more than you need.
Yep.
It is small, so it's difficult to pick up on radar. It's fast as hell. Yeah. It has its own tractor beam built in, so eventually that'll become very good. And it has range compared to all the other ships its size.
Yep.
Long range, it's got a problem. But if you're doing short range smuggling runs, it's absolutely the best option you have. And
well, it makes me think of like back in the videos you see of Mexico, where they always had that high speed, really high elegant boat. You know what I'm talking about? Like, but it was always a real classy speedboat. Yeah. Yeah,
the super boats, the super speed boats. They do drug running. And it's important to remember that right now, in game, drugs are the only illegal thing commodity you can deal with. But they still have Osoyan hides and other kind of counterfeit knockoff versions, which are technically illegal. So there'll be other things that we'll be able to smuggle that isn't just like drugs in the universe.
And the Osonian hides. Now, people talk about the Hurstons being evil, but the Hurstons don't smuggle Osonian hides. You know, and that is breaching like so many rules of the Fair Chance Act.
It is. I do think that the Xi'an buy them for aphrodisiacs. There's one of those species that the Xi'an kill and then harvest for aphrodisiac purposes.
Old Man Hurston buys them for his Uwa girls bikinis.
No, Old Man Hurston. Old Man Hurston, a law-abiding citizen of the
UEC. They are cat girls. It's got to get hair from somewhere, I agree. Anyway.
I think people call them cat girls because they're under the influence of Evercrack.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
They're hallucination. So that's my take, but
So if you guys hear drilling in the background from me, my mother, in her infinite wisdom, decided to get a handyman to rock up at before 8 a.m. Insane, to fix a thing in my kitchen, which they've just started. I've just heard the drilling, but who does that at 8 a.m.? Come in the afternoon.
And for me, the answer is probably a bit more of a role play. One of the things that did pull me in was things like the exploration and the non-pew-pew ships. One of the things that really intrigues me is going to a settlement or a system that's struggling and do a Drake. Work at building up that system so it's no longer struggling, so it's prospering. That for me would be the absolute jam. So yeah. So something like Branagh, something like Vega 2, you know.
We're on the smuggling stuff.
Orion.
Super Kobe asked a question there that's smuggling related, so I'll put this to Paul.
Yep.
Do you think the C1 Spirit will be the best smuggling ship of its size, Paul?
No.
Yeah, I agree.
No. The problem with the C1 is we don't have a lot of information about it, like for final versions. It's not a bad ship, but it's way bigger than like the Cutlass Blue. Honestly, is better because the Cutlass Blue offers it's faster. Yeah. And has abilities to prevent people from running away from you if you need to, but it is also tougher.
That uniquely balances the ship though, so it gets speed, but it's also a bigger target that can be hit. And like I said when we first talked about it, it's this long tube, but it's been designed that way so you get speed, but in return you have a bigger ship that's a bigger target. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see because in other ways it also there are other things like it. Like, how do I put this? The Cutlass Black has 2 tractor beams, right? Where the C1's only got 1 at the back. So it's good for picking it up, but it can't kind of combat pick it up because how do you swing in, poke your butt out, and then grab it and drag it away? Or do you have a Cutlass that can just come in front ways and pick it up and kind of push it in front of it? So this every ship in that even the freelancer is weirdly balanced because it's in the middle. You know, so you get advantages for everything. Do you take the balanced approach? It's the same thing as like light, medium, heavy armor. That's the easiest way to look at it. You know, do you take the light armor where you get the speed, but you don't have any protection? Do you take the really heavy armor where you can take a hit, but you move slower, so you're more likely to be hit? Or do you go safely somewhere in the middle between the two? And it's exactly the same with those three ships. And you find that when you look at a lot of these ships, they've literally done that rock paper scissors thing in different ways, but like Hammerhead, Nautilus, and Perseus, another example. You know, and it's just there again and again and again when you go through all these ships that they've got rock paper scissors everywhere. Really, really common. Anyway,
my thought about the best smuggling ship, if you're caught, is not the blue, because the blue only inhibits them the interdiction. I would have thought something like what's the RSI ship? The Mantis. Because if you can kill their jump engines, then you can fly away.
But you kill your own, don't you? How can you turn it on? Like, how can you warp if the QED? It locks people down, which also locks you.
It locks people down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'd be better with something like an EMP missile from the Sentinel, so you hit him with the EMP and then you warp out. That would be cool.
Yeah. The blue is only good because it's the fastest of the cutlasses.
Yeah.
And a cutlass itself is a really flexible tool.
The cutlass is, as much as I hate, apart from the steel, which is a steel. Cutlass.
It's a mugging.
It is. I was talking with expat Brat, or chatting with them in text during the week, and they were saying that the steel, they got into the steel and they hated it. They hated it because it just took all the good things that the cutlass had and took just ripped them out. Yeah, so it was an interesting little chat, but they seem to, if I'm recalling correctly, they seem to hate it for pretty much the same reasons we do.
Welcome to the club.
So yeah. Anyway, next question.
I had something I was going to say, but I've now forgotten. Yeah, go to the next question. It's all good.
Okay. Dan Little's question is easily directed at me. I think it's probably Paul and you are out of this one. Bow ties versus standard ties. What do you prefer and when?
No ties. I win. Woohoo!
Only choice of bow ties or regular. Whichever's easiest at the time.
Whichever's better for when I turn up, I can just strangle them.
Yeah.
The issue with bow ties is that bow ties are harder to tie because they're shorter, so you have to be a little bit more careful. So they're a little bit more, unless you have like clip-ons, that's cheating.
Unless you're cheating.
I have one of those ones that
I am cheating.
I'd have one of those ones that spin if I could have it.
Yeah.
Just to distract people.
As I occasionally wear the bow tie at school, and sometimes the students comment, and I take a Doctor Who line. Yeah, but I make this look.
Bow ties are cool. Yeah, bow ties are fantastic with the right attire.
Did anyone see what Nooblitz just said in chat?
No.
Nope.
So hello, my name is Steve, and I am here. I have ship OCD, and I need help bad. Yeah, you. So Steve is an ARC streamer, or Nooblitz is an ARC streamer. He's got like, he's bigger than Morphologist and Board Gamer combined. And he does have a ship problem. How could you know he's got a ship problem? If you remember, we need to fix my fleet with 2 of his fleets, and he's got more than 2.
We needed to do 2 fix my fleets with him because he had 2 accounts with big fleets. So yes. Welcome to
the addiction.
Yeah,
to the cult.
To the addiction. As
not a cult.
Would
say,
Hashtag
not a cult.
As Batgirl would say, rehabilitation is not an option. And the enablers basically are, because they don't actually help you with your addiction, they enable your addiction. And I think we're all unfortunately responsible for that type of behavior. So yeah.
Back to the fun question about bow ties versus standard ties, though. Standard ties are great on an every day-to-day basis because once you've learned how to tie them, you can tie them a billion times. Lots of length is not too difficult. And if you're looking for more professional, you take the tie. If you're looking for more academic, then you do the bow tie.
Yep.
Standard ties are professional and bow ties are academic.
From a law perspective, do you know why they created ties?
fancy neck warmers.
Apparently, it was
IRL?
designed to cover the buttons on shirts. Is apparently what they were originally designed for, is what my mum told me. But I don't know if that's true.
That makes sense. The thing about the history of clothing is that there's a lot of different origins for a lot of different things. So like it could also be that, you know, there were other neck coverings that existed before ties that were like armor pieces that then got transferred over to being fancy. And then that covering it just evolved over time, then eventually became what we know of as tie. And it'll probably change between now and, you know, 30 years from now. So
well, you even look at the way
it already has.
You even look at the way suits are worn. You know, it's three button suit, top button sometimes, middle button always, bottom button never.
You know why?
You know, was originally part of one of the kings was a bit ton, but these days it's also because the cut of the shirts is actually the suits is made, so they actually sit better when you don't do that bottom button up.
I don't know about
in the 1940s,
this show is going somewhere where I never thought it would go.
In the 1940s,
that's a fascinating one. You know, is that the bottom button was always unbuttoned, and so because of the king, and everyone did that, and then they started changing clothing for it too because of that.
But it was also slightly because when the bottom button's undone, the suit would actually sit better if you were sitting on a horse. So there was that type of aspect. In the 1940s, the Americans' fashion was actually do all the buttons up. And so the suit had that straight look. But these days, the cut of the suits is is deliberately made so the material flows better when that bottom button is undone. So yeah, lots of, you know, that's a historical reason and the debate in clothing styles. So yeah, one day we'll see.
We can take that into a Star Citizen thing. Is that like that's the one probably one of my biggest gripes about Star Citizen when it comes to customization is that it's so laser focused on modern attempts at sci-fi. Like a lot of the clothing is either modern or cliche sci-fi, but they haven't taken into account things like, you know, even now the prevalence of, you know, and has been throughout history, the prevalence of women's clothing becoming men's clothing. Like people forget that a lot of men's clothing today was once women's clothing, that and vice versa, because people start trying to be rebellious and wear different clothing, and so it ends up being adopted and then become part of the popular culture, and then people forget that, you know, all men wore, you know, like tunics and skirts up until like post-Roman era, because in fact wearing pants was considered barbaric in early Roman times, and now. But because the Germans wore it, and then the Germans took over all of Europe, and so everyone kind of adopted the pants. All right, except for the Scots.
No more talking about pants. We're done. All right, moving on. Right.
To wrap that up, CIG needs to look at more clothing styles than just what we see,
and even options of different, you know, ability to do buttons.
Don't make me smack you. Stop. Right. Super Colby said C1 is still the size of the Cutlass, though. I don't know. You tell me.
No, it's not.
It looks
bigger.
Well, I've got it up on screen. If you can look, it is clearly much bigger than the other two. And I would, as you look there, I would almost say the Freelancer is potentially the smallest of the three there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the biggest drawback to the C2. It is easily bigger than the others by a country mile. And I would also argue there's a lot of wasted space.
It's not wasted. It's just aerodynamic. Those wings are good for aerodynamic.
They'll be great for.
It will probably reduce your hydrogen fuel usage, which is fine. But that's completely.
It's got VTOL as well, so it's probably going to hover a little bit better than the Freelancer. It's probably got better VTOL than the Cutlass, even. Again, the wings, etc.
Yep, but it will be deficient in other areas.
That's how you
bigger
balance
cross section.
It's the one, half a dozen of the other. Yeah. So, you know,
and it also gives you a reason to kind of want maybe two of them, or you know, or different roles for different things. That's good game design. There's this perpetual thing that I see a lot from, and I don't want to call people amateurs, but that's just the safest word to use, where they seem to want this ship that does everything.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people look at something like the Carrack and they go, "Oh, it does everything." But what they're not realizing is that ship is kind of really undergunned for its size, and it's really designed to be away from everything else, and it's got all this long range stuff because it is designed to go out on its own. It is that's why it has repair stuff, medical stuff, because it needs to sustain itself, right? But if anything does go wrong, they're stuffed, right? Like if they run out of medical supplies or repair stuff, they are literally stuffed. Like 9 times out of 10, that person is gonna die or that ship is cooked because they're so far out. It's gonna take another character to come and get them to repair it, to save them. And if it's time sensitive, like someone's got 15 minutes till the clock runs out, no chance. Just absolutely
I'm sure
none.
you guys, both of you guys remember the original little game that they put out when the Carrack was first released, you know, where you flew the Carrack and you made your choices, and 9 times out of 10, you didn't find the jump point, you died. You ran out of fuel or or taken prisoner by Banu or and you could actually see where people had got, and multitudes of people in terms of the progress track just died. It was just
and you got to also remember, like someone was saying in chat about 2-man Carracks and stuff. Like, it's going to cost a fair bit to take NPCs out for that long. Like, think about when you send people out on an oil rig, you've got to pay them more because they're away for longer and stuff like that. And then on top of that, you kind of have away, but then when they come back, they get time off, but they still get paid. You know, things like that. So it will be similar cases in the game as well, where you will pay up market to get people to stay out for longer and stuff like that as well.
I think the bigger issue with those is the fact that when you're doing those long-term distance missions, you're not getting paid as much. And so, you know, if you're say,
a bit of the glory, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm going out to explore to find stuff. I've got crew. I'm not getting paid unless I find stuff. But you still got to pay your crew. Whereas you do a mission, you do those shorter missions where you're getting the pay is ticking over a lot more, or you're mining and that. The pay to pay those, you know, the ability to pay those NPCs is going to be there. Same as ability to pay your player crews is going to be there. But on an exploration mission,
well, that's something we've talked about a fair bit between the Carrack and Odyssey, isn't it? Because I think the Odyssey is going to be the bigger earner between the two, because it's probably not as exciting, but it's definitely more. It's kind of like the Orion versus the ground miner. We've talked about this a bit as well, because the Orion's probably just going to be stable there, eating rocks and getting kind of a flat rate, but then the ground miner is going to be looking for those big nodes and those big payoffs. So it's more of a jackpot payout.
More purity.
Yeah, you're going for that gold rush feel, where the Carrack is probably the gold rushy like one, because it's looking for things, but when if it finds a jump point or something like that, it's pay dirt, right? Where the Odyssey is going to be more on the planet and just putting down those land claims and stably selling them and getting money and stuff like that, and you just sell that off to a data broker, and they buy the land claim, and then they go, well, I know who deals in copper for that mine, I'll sell it to that, so it's going to be a lot more stable. Well, at least in my opinion. I don't know if you guys agree, but all right, next question.
Next question. North has a question. They say, should player bounties be attached to an MMR ranking system that could be related to their MMR in Arena Commander if they play in Arena Commander?
I think you could have a simulation rating versus a real life rating, because let's be honest, now you guys tell me this, right? If you know that you're going to potentially die, I think it changes the stakes. I think people play psychologically different. Now, I know we're talking about a video game, but when the risk goes up, people act differently. It's like why people gamble in real life, right? Because when there's money on the line, people act differently. So, yeah.
We said at the moment, why do people take the risks in game? Because our lives don't matter.
Yeah.
Death of the spaceman isn't in. People don't care. I will fly my ship in front of that. If I've got trying to defend the destroyer, and and there's a torpedo coming to it, and I can block that shot, or I can block that shot from the laser. If I do it and it means we win, I might do it.
No.
But when Death of the Spaceman's in and I blow my ship up and it kills me and I've got to do a new character, I'm not going to do that. You're stupid. But Destroyer can go, I'm out of here. You know, so yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Paul? Or
What's that?
nope, he doesn't.
No. Nope. Sorry, I just got news because we were talking about it in my Discord about because my theory about Theaters of War. Jake came out and said Theaters of War is not currently in active development. If it were, you'd know. It'd be showed up on the progress tracker.
There you go.
So,
okay.
We didn't say it is in active development. We just, you know,
it's well. There's also a difference between planned and active development.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think it's planned, but
yeah.
All right. Next
but
question.
anyway,
Drop Yogurt asks question: favorite colors on a ship. So, Paul, do you want to go first?
Sure. Favorite colors on the ship. I'm a big fan of purple and green. Those are terrible colors, but those are my two favorites. So any of those kind of purple and or green.
I thought you were going to go purple and pink, but okay. Purple and green.
Nah, pink's okay. It just depends on the kind of pink. I'm not a big. The problem about pink is that most types of pinks are either far too bright or far too dull.
You do know purple and green is the Joker colors, right? Just want you to know that. So
yeah, that's the reason why I said it's not a very good combination. I'm a very good fan of darker greens or very dark purples. So like dark purple and gold probably be my favorite.
Yeah,
more
so
royal colors.
So post your purple and green Redeemer pics on the Discord, because I'm keen to see. Right, Algared, what would yours be? Because mine's very obvious, but what's yours, Algared?
I know yours is red.
No, it's black with a little bit of red. That's my color.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm probably green and gold. No, boring.
Green and
boring,
gold.
typical Aussie,
Really?
but green and gold. Yep.
So kind of like if you
I
took
love
the,
emerald green.
if you
Emerald
took the,
green is fun.
Yeah.
So if you took the Chinese New Year one and mixed it with the emerald from St. Patrick's Day, you'd kind of have you. So you know how they got the red and gold for Chinese New Year? So you take the red off and put the green on.
If I put a proper emerald green in, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that will get me. Yeah.
All right. Next question. Armin Butter asks, question, do you think they'll come out with enough Warp 1 ships, to nicely CCU chain to a Libra similar to the $90 carrack? Well, they've definitely got worse, the CCUs. That they've caught on to that, that they are spreading them out more. So what that means is you can get better chains, but you have to pay more money to get them. So that you're getting more savings, but you're paying more to get them as well. So it works out for both parties in a weird turn of phrase. But yeah, Algared?
Down the track, over several sales, yeah, probably. You might be able to do that. But, you know, like that $90 Kraken or the $95 Kraken.
I don't think it'll be repeated.
Well, not Kraken, but Carrack was, that was over several years of picking up.
True. It was four different sales.
Yeah, and I think it also used the referral ship as well. So, you know, there are elements in that you got to take into account.
Yeah,
but
it was
over time.
It was a referral Gladius, so you needed 10 referrals to get that, and that gave him a $90 ship for free. And then it was basically going from the Gladius all the way up to the Carrack. And as I said, 2 years of sales, so 4 sales, so 2 AIEs and 2 Invictuses. Paul, can you turn on your typing, please? It's so damn loud.
No. I can't believe it's that loud.
It's so loud. The stream can hear it. Everyone on the stream can hear it.
Give me a moment. Okay, I know why.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, even I could hear it. That was shocking. All right, next question from Dan Little. If you could use only one shipping game, what would you use? What is your modular ship choice? And what is your non-modular ship choice? He slipped in 3 questions there. So what's your ship of choice?
That's really hard to tell because, like, if you answer that now, it's just going to be the Reclaimer, right, for me. But down the line, like, there may be gameplay that comes that there's something that comes down the line that's better than salvage. You're asking me to predict the future, and a lot of those gameplay design documents just haven't been dropped. You know, so we don't have detailed things on how medical stuff is going to work. Like how does it be to be a surgeon? You know, we've only got the basic level of kind of nursing with drugs at the moment, as an example. You know, we've got the basics of repair, the basics of salvage, the basics of mining. We don't actually understand how. What you know how you crack a rock open in mining, but how do you go down into a node and extract it out? What's the mini game there? We don't have that. right? We don't have how munching works in salvage. So there's just so many things that are missing right now. That's a really, like, it's just how you would feel. So that's a really hard one for anyone to answer.
And the modular one, it's so few ships have the modulars, but it's hard to even determine.
I still think
so.
I still think there's lots of good modular ships though. So I think for me, I'm from a combat perspective, the Redeemer's really interesting. I think it's more a bit of a hope. I want to know more about the Caterpillar, because that, like, if you've ever watched the videos Algared or I've done on or even the videos CIG did, where they've done 3 videos on the Caterpillar, but I think the last one was in 2016. But me and Algared went back and kind of compiled them all together in a ship scrutiny. It is just a potentially amazing ship, but it's just so complicated. It's probably going to be one of the last modular ships we see. And I think the fact that they've never told us what modules are coming for that is kind of
really makes it hard.
I don't want to call it disgusting, or it's annoying is probably the biggest thing, because like, how do you make a conscious purchase decision if you are basing it on a promise, right? And a promise.
The answer is you don't. That's the answer.
Or you can be like me and you just buy it and you sit on it, and I'll turn into something else if it goes to shit. You know, so
yeah, and that's the problem, is that, like, CIG even themselves sold it as or continue to sell it as a
cargo variant.
Yeah, it's just a cargo ship is all it is.
Yeah.
So, like, they said that they may do modules, but that's the question that comes up a lot. It's like, oh, what about modules? Is that there are only 4 confirmed modular ships, and one of them is even shaky on that one, which is the Vanguard.
Actually, they've said there's modules coming for the Caterpillar. They just said they'll announce it at another date. That's what they said. But
Exactly. But until then, there are only 4. There are only 4, which is the Endeavor, I'll hail it, the Retaliator, and the Galaxy. The 4th one being the Vanguard with its battlefield upgrade kits. But even those, we don't know.
You're missing a few. So the Javelin,
not confirmed yet.
No, it's got 6. It's got 6. It's confirmed, Algared, yeah.
It's confirmed, but it's not sold. Like, they haven't started selling modules.
Paul's making that distinction.
So he's talking about sold modules versus promise.
So the only ones that are
being designed to be modular,
100% guaranteed that they must do because they've sold the modules.
Well, the other one is the Redeemer, because the Redeemer is actually the $65 million stretch goal example. So they've never sold them, but it was, but they've literally used it as an example of modularity.
Yeah, well, there's tons of modularity. Like, the Avenger would eventually be able to be swapped out. There's lots of those modular ideas they've had, but those are not things that CIG has confirmed. They've just said we would like to do that. And there is a distinction between confirming that and like to do that. It's like Chris said once in an offhanded comment that he'd like to do Tavaran Kung Fu. That doesn't mean that CIG is putting assets into making Tavaran Kung Fu. It's just an idea that they're talking about. That's the kind of distinction that I think a lot of people need to remember when it comes to these things like modularity, is that there are only 3 ships that are confirmed and 4 ships, and then one of them, which is the Vanguard, I have heard is no longer modular, because the battlefield upgrade kits have been swapped from being full swap outs to just being weapons packages. So you get the weapons for those ships on your other ships. So,
like, what I heard. I heard that they still had the pod swap ability, because they actually can look on the bottom, and on the Warden variant, that actual thing ejects. It's an ejection module, so it's like almost like ejection seat, but the whole pod ejects out.
Yeah, I would love to see that, because I know that's the actual, like, that Warden variant is actually an escape pod. Like, that middle section is actually an escape pod.
Yeah.
But
so it's just all it does is swap that pod. So you can take a pod from the Sentinel and put it in a Harbinger. You can take the Harbinger and put it in a Sentinel.
But I have heard other things. I've also heard other things from CIG confirming that it's no longer the plan. So, but I mean, that's the point, is that that's the only one that I've heard that it may not be. Yeah. So,
but Paul's right in terms of the fact that the only ships they've actually sold the modules for, which means that the only ships they actually have to be committed to are the ones that, you know, the Retaliator for its modules, the Endeavor for its modules, and the Galaxy for its modules, because they're the only ones they've actually sold modules for. So he's right.
So don't buy the Carrack because of the because you want to, you are hoping that they'll do a modularization for their little cargo bays. They may never happen. We don't know.
But they have.
So what you're saying is you think it'll just end up being only a cargo thing for the Carrack, or cargo for the Javelin, or cargo?
No,
for
I think they'll do modules, but I don't think that may take place when I'm retired. You know, I'm 36. Like, I have no idea how long that'll take. It may never happen because it's not something CIG had sold like money for.
I think we've got different things on that, because I disagree on some of that stuff. Because another example is the M50, right? The M50 technically has a module to swap engines out. And that was on the roadmap and stuff like that. So when I've seen things like that, and as I've seen time and time again, they'll like the example I give is Death of the Spaceman. Now, they didn't update that for 8.5 years, and it didn't change. So when they say stuff, they tend to, do that. And another example was, and this goes to what you were saying about them promising stuff and then struggling to deliver, was all the stuff that was promised for the Phoenix Algared. You know, they promised all this stuff over time, and then they'd say they had to take some of it back and had to go some of it forward because they crossed over each other. So you can have one or the other, like the piano or the hot tub, stuff like that. So for me, if they've said something, they will try to deliver it because they've said that, right? But not always will it be delivered, right? So I always take them at their word until they tell me something different. And
I do have to correct you on your comment about the Phoenix and piano or hot tub. It's piano or the dining table. So you swap that one out.
You get my point, though.
Unfortunately, the hot tub, is always there. You can just.
You get my point, though, right? You're missing my point. My point being.
But I wish it was a piano or hot tub, because I would never have a hot tub, because I think it's an abomination.
Oh, those Uwu girls are going to be so disappointed. But you get my point. The thing is, they generally say stuff, and it doesn't change until we hear something different, right? So they've actually, to give an example that I believe that kind of counteracts your point a little bit, Paul, and you can disagree with me. We always happy to disagree here, right? Is they made 3 videos about the Caterpillar talking about the modules. So if they turned around and just never delivered modules, I think it would be. I don't know. I think there'll be a bit of blowback, because there are people. I'm not the only one I know that's holding onto that ship, right? There are a lot of people that have brought it and that are sitting on it waiting for the modules. And I've talked to at least a dozen people since the Galaxy that came out, and they're like, why won't they just tell us one other module that it comes with? So at least, and as
because
I said,
they don't know.
Yeah,
that's the answer.
Well, they don't have enough staff to work on these things. I understand that, right? But the other part of it is they've now taken the medical module that was on the. So I now think the Caterpillar probably won't come with a medical module, because that was one of the ones. Well, Galaxy and it are basically the same size. So yeah.
Like there is that thing where they've got the modules they've said, so we know they're coming, and then there's the ships have said a module, we just don't know what the modules are. CIG don't know what the modules are, and that's where and then there's those other ships that aren't module at all, and so there's those 3 levels. The only ones that are 100% guaranteed are the ones with the modules. The other ones, yes, they're modular, we just don't know what the modules are for them, and that's where the difference of opinion is. It's kind of semantics as to what we mean by has modules, not have modules.
So someone in chat just said too, Max Flashback, sorry if you got hammering, it's really loud, I apologize. But Max Flashback says the Carrack will be able to have an Atlas delivery module. That's the Atlas platform.
At all.
I don't remember that. But
I don't remember
Max,
that.
if that's true, link me the the brochure.
That was John Crew when they were talking about when the Atlas first came out, and he said he was talking about, yes, we may be able, it will fit. We could probably put it in, and we may actually make down the track a ability to take out the cargo pods and replace it with an Atlas delivery module. But that was, yes, it fits if we actually made the work. He wasn't saying it was, and I think he even said at the time, I'm not saying it is something we could do, it's something we may or could do. So it's not something
and
we
that's
will
the
do,
problem.
We may or could do. But people hear it and they go, "Oh, we've got it, we've got it." That is a module that they have not said. They said we could. They have not said they are.
I'm with you, X, on the whole, like, people are gonna get mad. I get it. CIG says a lot of shit. They promise a lot of stuff, but they just can never back up. And CIG's found that it's just better PR to just shut up about it and not talk about it until people lose their mind about it. For instance, as I just learned, apparently this was announced, but not ever announced because I don't see where it was, that Theaters of War is on hold indefinitely. Which we kind of knew already, but it was mentioned in at least back in April of last year. It was still mentioned on the roadmap or on the progress trackers and that kind of stuff. So
although Sean Tracy actually hinted at it in the video today.
He did, but this is
we know about stuff, and I don't want to say stuff that will make people lose their crap. You know.
Yeah. Well, Jake also said basically it's on hold. They're not doing. You're not doing it right now. So
with the module stuff,
and that's
Ostentatious One has said a bunch of stuff in Twitch. But long story short, I kind of agree with him. He's saying modules are not a priority. They really aren't. Right. So, and if you kind of look at, they have a staffing problem at the moment. That's something they can come back to at a later date. You know, like modules are so much.
This isn't even working game.
We don't have gameplay to suit them. So, like, if we don't have the medical, we don't need the module. If we don't have the salvage, we don't need the. You get where I'm going. So they will probably come. And he is recently. Now I think about what he's saying, it makes a lot of sense. If they brought a gameplay into the game, so say salvage, right? When salving's in and munching is in, and they make that chop shop module that if they want to make that for the caterpillar, boom, it would be there as an option. Yeah, I agree with you. That's a good thought, Ostentatious One. Thank you very much. Next question.
And I don't mean before we go on, because I know Dan Little did say this, is like, just don't ask questions about modularity. That wasn't the point. The point is more, there's a lot of rumor and speculation that gets thrown around because of modularity, because CIG released the Galaxy. So a lot of people have gotten upset and angry because CIG didn't talk about their super special ship that CIG mentioned at one point could be modular, be it the Carrack, the Caterpillar, the Avenger, the Javelin. There's so many other ships which have been mentioned that have modularity. Like, why are they working on this brand new ship instead of mine? And the answer is that CIG hasn't ever said any of those will 100% support modules, just that they could, and that they're planning on working on them. But you know, CIG also says they're not planning on selling ships after release. That's going to be a lie. They're definitely going to be selling ships after release.
I hear them not selling ships.
They'll just sell them as one-offs, so they'll only be like Warbond sales, and then they'll go in again straight away.
Food and drink is another great example. They said they promised that food and drink wouldn't kill you, that it was just going to be a debuff, and then they changed their mind. So the answer is anything can and will change in development. That's just how development works.
Max Flashpoint makes a really good point too. He says, well, not a good point. I want to counter correct him. He says, modules are years away if we are lucky. No, because the engine for the M50 was on the roadmap and it was the test bed for modularity. So I think modules and components are actually linked, because if you think about how they designed the slot system,
resource management.
It's all around the resource management. It's the same thing.
There are actually 2 modular ships we have forgotten about.
There's probably more.
The Kraken, the Kraken and the BMM, because they've got stores, and the stores are actual module things. You know, what store are you putting in?
And there's probably more coming, more store shops as well. Like, actually, while you're here, Paul, I had a theory. Origin fashion shop ship. What do you think?
Yeah, go for it. I love it.
And the reason of that was the well, what me and Algared kind of talked about, we thought became the Banner Merchantman, was the original concept for the 890 Jump had 3 shops in it. And it's the same size as the Merchantman with shops. So if you take that idea back, and then make it a smaller Origin ship.
I could even see
a 600 eye size. Yeah.
Well, if you've got the privateer with 4, the Banner Merchantman with 3, something else with 2, and then a small one with 1. Makes sense to me. Drop a shop every time you go down.
I've always thought it was the Cutlass Purple is a perfect example, because the Cutlass would be a perfect platform for something like that, since that interior section, that cargo section, is so flexible. You could easily turn that into a shop.
You just want a bar, because we all know that
Yes.
is a drink which is mixed by the party.
I think you're more likely to get an 890 jump purple, personally. You know, like a big party boat.
Well, the only reason why I think of the Cutlass is because it's got those big side doors that open up, so they're perfect like venue locations. So you could, like, if someone wanted to do something in venue,
it would be your DJ who rocks up. That's the DJ stage, and he rocks up, opens the doors, does it on the planet, closes up, flies away. Yep.
I do exactly. Want to see a Drake shop. You know, like a junker shop.
Yeah.
You know, it's got the racks and stuff, almost like that. And everyone talks about the guy from Fifth Element. You know, that Chinese.
That the junk flying car. That's actually
I really do want to see a Drake salvage, a proper Drake salvage ship. You know, one that's got the bits and pieces, or a repair shop, because that fits. With the Drake lore, they are a salvage company. They are doing that type of stuff.
The problem with junker ships, though, Algared, right, and a way to think about it is, if you look at the ones that they've made for Squadron 42 as an example, the only way to do junker ships properly, and I think it's something that's going to come so much further down the line, is you need some kind of procedural. You know how they do the different rooms for space station and stuff, but you need that for greebles on the outside of ships. So they are like, it's the same stats as the other junker ship, but it looks so different. And it spawns at once, and that's how yours looks, and it'll only ever look like yours. But that's a system they can do, because they've got that procedural generation stuff. It's just so much further down the line. We really could get some really cool, awesome junker ships. And you could see manufacturers that they'll bring in that is like, you know, I don't know, Rebels Recycling or something like that, you know, or whatever. And they basically... or a spin-off of Dump and Dip. You get where I'm going. Like, it'll be a manufacturer where they're not really a manufacturer, but what they specialize in doing is they make you cheap ships that are made from recycled components and stuff like that. And as we were talking earlier today, I've just thought of, what if that is one of the starter professions? So you basically get a slightly more powerful ship for cheaper, but it's recycled and reused. So maybe it breaks down more often because it's got recycled components or secondhand components.
One of the things I know they could do, even with the Connies, because of the way they built them for breaking up, you know, you got the cockpit, the neck, the body, the tail.
Yeah.
Each of them have. They made it so, you know, the nose of a Connie could go, an Aquila could go on a Phoenix or an Andromeda or whatever. The body could go onto either one, but the parts that were on the body would go with that aspect, so you could actually mix and change them, and that would be a way you get totally, you know, multitude of different variants of a Connie.
Actually,
that?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was on a stream yesterday, and I don't want to name them, shame, so I won't say who it was, but I was on a stream yesterday, and they were talking about salvage, and they actually thought the claw on the Reclaimer was what cut ships up. They didn't realize it had lasers on it, and they actually thought it was just going to be particles that sucked in the ship. They didn't even realize the ships broke up into chunks or anything like that. So I found that really interesting. But that's just because you and I have been around so long. They just didn't know.
You were going to add something.
No, I was going to say off topic. We have confirmation, just so you all know, and this is using this is a platform for those of you who do not live in the United States or in Texas, which is the majority of citizens who are watching. If you don't know, Texas is currently under yet another historic cold front. We just had a massive ice storm that swept across the state, and something like 200,000 or something like that, a ridiculous amount of people are without power, which includes CIG's offices in Austin. And since CIG's Austin offices are how they push, or the people who push patches, they are unlikely to get power on until at least tomorrow, at worst probably Monday.
So we may get a delay.
So maybe back off on the where's my patch, where's my live, just for
where's my 318, just for a weekend, just because they literally are people who, there are CIG developers who are without power right now in freezing cold. So please shut the fuck up for just a weekend.
So is that
be a human being?
You didn't have, you got the reprieve from needing to be at work?
Yes, I have. I just got the word. I'm not even going back to work tomorrow, even though the storm is passed, because they don't have enough power to power. They don't have power working on all the school sites. So that's how bad it is. They've canceled a lot of like schools and such. So
Paul, I know you can't even do online because so many people are out of power.
Yeah.
How tragic.
Yeah, you can't even do online stuff because students may not even have power, and it's still really cold conditions. So
you must be shattered.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely. It's not like I haven't been working on stuff and then playing video games for most of the last couple of days.
That's one thing we don't get here in Australia, Algared, is it? We don't get those big, like we see a lot on the TV here where we see you guys like shoveling snow and stuff. We just don't get that here. Like we do up in the mountains and stuff, but most of Australia is really on the coastline, so we just don't get those big piles of snow get ever.
We occasionally get the heat waves. And I know at our school, you know, when we get those really hot days, if we're still on, the hall's opened at lunchtime, the ACs are cranked up, half of the rooms are open. Just to get the students out of the.
Well, out here, Tasmania is considered one of the coldest places in Australia. Everyone's always laughing at us on the news because we have cold. But where I live and the cities down here, it snows here once every 15 years. So and even then, it's like a light sprinkling. It's nothing like what you guys go through at all.
Well, we don't even in Texas, because Texas is like Texas is probably closer to the same. Close to the equator as like as Australia is. I don't know. It's but we barely get any snow, which is the reason why you have a bad ice storm or a bad snowstorm. That's even just a mild storm compared to like other places in the United States. It shuts everything down because we just don't have the infrastructure to support it.
So in honesty, in your honest opinion, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. But do you put climate change anywhere in that discussion?
I mean, you're gonna get people complaining about talk politics, but
it's not politics. It's
100%. Texas has been getting worse storms all across the board because of climate change.
So I can tell you right now, in Tasmania, our summers have become colder and our winters have become warmer. So in a really weird turn of phrase, from a person perspective, it's actually had a positive effect because I'm not freezing my butt off or sweating my balls off. So it's mediated it. So but it's probably not good for the environment because they're not getting those seasonal things.
We've certainly had milder summers in Sydney. They haven't been as 40 plus days as often. And we seem to get a lot more rain, and our winters seem to be a lot drier.
Well, we had a rainy day here yesterday, Algared, and it went down. Right now it's 20 degrees. This is one of the coldest days we've had. Yesterday though it got down to 15 degrees. That is a winter's day in the middle of summer. That's insane.
That's 20 degrees Celsius, right? So it's still quite a nice. That's still
probably a bajillion Fahrenheit. I don't know how to convert it back to Fahrenheit, but
cold.
Yeah. But put it this way: the normal human body temperature is 22 degrees, so it's below. So you start to feel cold. Anyway, all right, we should probably move on. Next question. North says, should Arena Commander, once finished and polished, be sold separately for $20? Don't encourage them. There's a really bad. Like they need more encouragement. I don't know. What do you think?
Should Arena Commander, once finished, be ported to Xbox and consoles?
Yes. I also do not believe that it should be 20. I don't think it should be $20. I think it should be free.
Yeah, encourage people to come into the game. That's a really good idea.
If it's made as a console game, sell it off as a game. Yeah, 100%.
No, download it for free off a website.
And you guys,
Algared, again, if it's free, right? You've got this small little kind of demo thing you can try, but if you want the campaign, if you want the multiplayer, it is encouragement. Because a lot of people, especially out there right now, there is all this hostility from the media to this game. We've all seen it. It's a scam, blah, 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 right? They come in, they try it themselves, and we've been seeing that. Every time someone comes out and says it's a scam or whatever, there's a huge surge in people that come into the game because they come in to see what it is, thinking it's a pile, like an epic mess. They watch people play it, they get drawn in and they're playing themselves. So it's actually working in reverse. So if it actually had a positive impact, you get even more people coming in.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. If it draw, there's both sides of the argument. If they sell it, it means they got more funds to use. But it increases their profit.
We are kind of talking afterwards, though, Algared. So it's more about less about the ship sales, and it's more because the ship sales are funding development, and they've always said once the game kind of releases, then it'll be a full profit game. So I think a lot of the ship sales are going to dry up a little bit. They'll probably move into more cosmetic items and stuff like that. So if they're doing the cosmetic items, they'll probably treat it like a free-to-play title. Is my thought.
I still think they're going to sell ships.
Yeah.
Once it's out,
because
it's a guaranteed money spinner. Will they have as?
But you won't be able to.
They are probably not.
But you won't be able to go out and say buy a Nautilus or a Kraken or something like that. You'll more than likely the way it's going to work, and we've talked about this before, is you can already see that they come into the game, and at the moment it's 6 months later you can buy them in game, right? So it's more likely you will buy whatever ship they bring out that's a new ship, and you get 3 to 6 months exclusive access before other people can buy it in game. You probably get a unique skin with it as well, and you've got to ask yourself, is it better for me to grind and earn that, or is it better for me just to pay for it? So it becomes like whales in free-to-play games. Like you get people then, like say League of Legends, they go buy all the skins, and that funds the development of the game. I'm not the biggest fan of it because a lot of those whales tend to be mentally, they have, I don't want to throw you on the bus, Algared, but you know what I mean. You have a Pokemon syndrome, right? You have this need to collect all those things. And a lot of those games with those cosmetic purchasable items prey on people that have conditions like that, right? And I'm one of them too, right? I buy a lot of that unique stuff.
For me, I think you suffer Pokemon syndrome for those things. I can cope without having all the paints. I can cope without having all the outfits.
Yep.
But my Pokemon syndrome is I've got to catch all the ships.
Yeah. Some of the
I get what you're saying.
Some of the worst things come out of those games too. Like, so the people that purchase stuff, like League of Legends is a really interesting example for me because I think it is one of the most toxic communities out there, and it's made that way because it's a free-to-play game. As soon as you gate purchase, people behave better. If there is no repercussions to being a dickhead, you'll be a dickhead, right? But if you purchase the game and you say put $5,000 worth of skins in, you have to behave and put up with the person that's playing for free's bullshit. So to me, I don't like the way free-to-play games work. I absolutely hate free-to-play games, and I've stopped playing them. So anything that's free-to-play, I've instantly just tuned out now, because they make this toxic environment. Because even if it's a small gate of $10, it makes a difference. And you can actually look at trends like, so CSGO went free to play. Toxicity levels gone absolutely through the roof. Because if there's no repercussions for your actions, what's to stop you? But if
the only repercussion you have is getting banned, and you can just make another account and keep doing it.
And as someone that pays for the game, you are held to a certain standard because they will ban you and you lose all your shit. And I've had it happen to me. I've had it happen to me in a game where like this person went off at me, and I retorted to this person, and I got banned, and they got banned. But I lost all these skins I brought. By the way, in Australia, it's illegal to do that. But if I want it back, I've got to take them to a domestic court that costs a minimum of $500 to get my stuff back. And because they're an American company, they won't just give it back because they know that you have to go to the court. So they do things like that too, and I hate that because then again, as a 5-star, that I was rated as a 5-star spender on their thing, they know that they're hoping I'll rebuy all the stuff again. I've just never played the game since. So they lost one of their best customers, but anyway, you get my point.
I hope that Star Citizen never goes for free.
Yeah.
And they're constantly buying, and you've got to buy the game. But even from the beginning, Chris has always said the two models he wants is the ability for those who don't have time because they're family people or they're professionals or whatever, to be able to buy the stuff in game and not be held back by the grind. And then for those people who've got plenty of time to be able to get the same stuff. It's what he's always said about that idea of exclusivity. There's very little, if any, exclusivity in the game or going to be in the game.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I've always heard Chris say.
Yeah. I think it always needs to be gated though, as in you need to buy the game, stuff like that. Ostatius one said something really interesting there too. He said, "I came in to check out the Scam Citizen after getting the Raven as a freebie." There you go.
There you go.
So he got it with a drive, and so that just shows you right there. Getting stuff for free encourages people to come in. So yeah.
And then he spent lots of money buying slips. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, Arena Commander could be a great way of saying, listen, this is the universe for those people who are hesitant to get in. And as X has already said, if you give, we've seen this with the free flight. When free flights happen, we see more people come in and afterwards. No matter how bad the free flight is, no matter how the performance is, people jump in and go, I see the ambition of this game. I see what this game is like.
You're right.
I want to get in on that.
Like, how many times does free flight come and we avoid it, or we play it and it's abysmal mess. It's
of course it is.
And yet, that abysmal mess we experience during a free fly is what actually gets people to sign up and play.
And you can see people like they're going, "Oh, I can't wait till this free fly's over, get rid of all these noobs and stuff." But I don't mind going in there helping people, because for me it's like seeing it all through someone else's eyes again for the first time.
But the thing is, that janky, slow, laggy mess that we get during the free fly, that is what actually results in whole piles of those people who've tried it signing up. That janky, horrible mess is what gives them, wow, shit, this is not a scam. This is it blows your mind when you actually think about it.
And there's some very smart gamers out there. Like, I'm going to be honest, like I know that this audience is at a higher because you have to research to get into this game, right? So they're informed. That's the word I would use, informed, because they inform themselves. They understand how they obviously have to be a bit more mature, I think, as a whole, because they come in, they research, they've played games for a while, and they have to understand that potential. And sometimes when I've showed younger people, they just can't. They go, "Oh, this is a buggy mess," and they're out. They can't see the underlying tech, and that's a really hard thing for me to get across. I think, like, especially when I show new people, the one thing I try to show people is the scale and how it's kind of like got seamless loading. Because once you kind of get that, it's kind of like a hook where you kind of go, "Oh wow, this is gonna have this massive depth to it." And then when you do kind of start to lose some people where you go, "So what's the depth?" And that's what falls out at the moment. You got to go, the depth's coming, and you show them the tools and the planets and the landing zones and stuff like that. But some people are like, oh, they either go, right, I'll look at it now, or I'll come back when that depth is there. They're all waiting for that depth because they've been burned by other games that are, what do you call it, as wide as a shallow. Oh, I forgot the saying.
As wide as the ocean, as shallow as a pool.
As a puddle, the one I remember.
I know that was always Dyson's concern, wasn't it? That they'd have lots of systems, but the planets would be very shallow.
Well, he's looking back at other games he's played, hasn't he? And we've done that as well. But like, we've been in this long enough now to know, because of all the tool systems that they're building, that they have literally from the get-go been planning all this all along, and it's just taking. They got it all in chunks, move to here, here, and
And even as they're looking at doing, they've been doing Pyro and doing the stuff they're adding to Pyro, they're going, oh yeah, and this is coming into, some of these are coming into Stanton as well. So it's going forward, back, and they're constantly just adding and adding.
Actually, a really good analogy for it. You know those puzzles that are like tiles that you move around?
Yep.
You can only move one tile at a time. So it's kind of like, you could probably think of it as a couple of tiles that you move around at a time, but certain tiles have to be moved into position before another tile can be moved. So there's this whole stop-starting thing, and right now, obviously, a really obvious one is like PES and server meshing and stuff like that.
Yep.
And once that moves into position, so many other things are being able to come in. And I know a lot of people think there's a lot of copium there, but that is realistically how game development works. A lot of pieces start to come in. It's like a jigsaw puzzle too. That's another way to look at it. You get the frame done, but as you get less and less pieces, it's more obvious where things go as well, because it moves towards that final game. And it's exactly the same thing. You think about all the things you've ever built in your life, like Lego, jigsaw puzzles. As you get less pieces and the thing becomes more and more complete, it speeds up. It's exactly the same analogy. Right.
Yep. So Lost in Walmart has a question. They said, have you invested in peripherals like you have ships? I always like telling new players, gear before JPEGs. Personally, I've found quality joysticks to be a huge additive for my gameplay enjoyment.
So I actually sent my Toby that has been sitting on the shelf for 2 years to Galahero during the week. He had his break and I had it sitting here for so long, so I just sent it to him.
You know his name is his name is Gallagher 07, right?
Yeah, but his last name is is Gallagher. So, yeah, just whatever.
Yep. That's his full name.
Yeah. But well, I know his first name now too. But anyway, yeah. But as for joysticks, I have worked with Tripole from Predator Mounts before I even kind of really started the company. I really encouraged him, as did Grim from Star Jump.
That reminds me, I need to talk to him.
We actually worked on, well, if you want help, I'll talk to him for you if you want. But he's really busy at the moment because his company's just gone absolutely gangbusters. And where he lives in Louisiana, he just can't find good staff. So if you know anyone in Louisiana that is good at welding or anything like that, reach out to me or to Pal, because I know he's looking for people like that, because he just needs more people to help him work. He released that new product at the start of January too. I don't know if there's a video on Twitter by Burks, and I also did retweet it. He's made this really cool track system for joysticks, and me and him bounce ideas off him for new products and stuff quite frequently. And there's other projects that me and him are going to work on. But as for joysticks, I've just never liked, as Algared kind of said earlier, I'm a big first-person shooter, and I am a mouse and keyboard player, and I fly a lot. And people go, "Are you using a joystick?" And no. Because I'm just that good with a mouse, because I've used it, 3D modeler and all that. I've got really good spatial awareness. I've just never needed it. So I found joysticks more detrimental because of the switching between the two, where I can land a plane type of thing, jump out and be straight into the action. I've never really liked that switching between the joystick and stuff. But I can see, I think at the end of the day, the best flyers will probably be joystick users because of the obvious, but
it just gives you a lot of control. Personally, I have twin sticks. I have two Thrustmasters T60000M. The whole concept of gear before JPEG makes sense, because there's no point in having even just the game until you have a rig that can run the game. And while Gen 12 and Vulkan will help fix a lot of those problems, you're still going to need a rig that has minimum 16 gigabytes of RAM and SSD, a modern graphics card, something like 20 or 30. I've got a 2070 Super and it struggles to run very well.
I had the same issue. I had a Titan X, and I had that for 6 years before I upgraded to this last year, or the year before. And I had to upgrade to this out of necessity because it was just, the game was going to shit. It was just so bad I couldn't play it. And it cost me probably double what the card was worth at the time.
I'll go as far as saying, if you're not playing the game, don't buy the JPEGs. Seriously.
It's just, that's a really good analogy.
If you're not playing the game, if you're not playing Star Citizen, you're saying, "Oh, wait until it comes." Don't buy the bloody JPEG.
I've heard that a few times, Algared, where people brought a ship and they weren't able to play the game because they didn't have a PC to play it for 2 years.
Right. Don't buy the ships if you're not playing the game. If you're waiting for the game to come out and be more stable, don't buy the ships now. Buy your starter ship, and that's it. But then get the computer that can run the game before you go all hog. That'd be my thought. But if you're not playing the game, don't buy the ships.
If this is just I'm just reading a few things in chat. If this is where the game is at now, and it's not really game enough yet, just imagine once a few of those gameplay features come online, like salvage, mining, medical, and every time another one comes on, you get so the medical comes online. All those people that are interested in medical that'll pile in. And pile in and pile in. You can see the snowball. It's going to be nuts. If that's just how many of us there are here now, it's kind of scary. If we're at 1 million whatever people, I know there's 3 million accounts, but I don't believe there's actually 3 million.
I know there's a whole pile of alt because I've got some of them.
Yeah, but at 1 million people, let's just be generous, and I don't know what the number is, right? Let's say 1 million, right? And this is before it's really getting to that game. We're at a fraction of what it's going to be.
But I
it'd be
think
it'd be in 10 millions type of
like
thing.
even with the alt account that people make, there is no doubt when you look at the stats that Chris showed it in the last letter, or talked about in the last letter, the number of accounts has skyrocketed. The number of playable hours that people have played has skyrocketed.
33% in the last year. So the entire community grew by 33% in just the last year alone.
It is possible that every community member bought 3 accounts, or
bought another account,
or bought another account. But that doesn't translate to the increased game time.
Yeah,
that says we suddenly played. Everyone was playing 42 hours more, or something like that. That's okay. It's not. It may not seem that much, but the amount of time people were playing the game, the amount of unique logins that they were recording,
so
skyrocketing up. They're the things that I think you look at. And
so Humphreys in chat says, yes, I'm not sure why people do not invest in the equipment they are playing on. COVID and the cost. I think people have got other priorities right now. Like there are some people really struggling. Like as Paul said before, just things that people not. I'm struggling to think of what one to talk about, Algared. But remember, you and I privately a couple of weeks ago were saying, how much is your regular shop gone up? And we said about $60 it's gone up, right? That's Australian dollars.
Inflation.
So that's probably. The other thing is, in the United States, our money is roughly equal to the same. So if you guys buy a burger, it costs almost similar to what it costs for a burger here. So it's probably gone up roughly $50, $60 in the States as well for you guys on a weekly shop basis. I don't know if that's the same for all of you. We're 2 single guys, so it's kind of the same. But the point is, everything's gone up everywhere, right? And a really good example that you can probably relate to being computer guys is people not buying the 4080s and the 4090s and the 4070s because they are just way too expensive, because Nvidia saw dollar signs, because they learnt during the pandemic they can just chuck the dollars as high as they want, but they didn't factor in the count that they had people in a almost like a target rich environment. It was a supply versus demand issue. As soon as the supply disappeared, the demand disappeared. Right, so the other way around. As soon as the demand disappears, the supply disappears. You hear where I'm going, but so people don't want them anymore because everyone's gone back to work and stuff like that. They don't need them anymore. So and that's why a lot of those cards dropped. All the 3000 series dropped, right? Where they've tried to keep the 4000 series really high, but that's why people are buying all the 3000 series, because they don't have the money to spend anymore.
I think one of the issues that comes in with the whole issue of peripherals kind of don't really change. I'm assuming they don't really change too much. But with the PC, I know people hold off. Do I upgrade my PC now so I can play the game now, or do I wait until the game, 2 or 3 years when the game comes out? Then if I buy the PC now, my PC is I'm going to need to get a new one.
You will never upgrade your PC if you don't upgrade it. I've heard that a lot. Like, do I wait for it? You shouldn't be playing Star Citizen if you don't have a computer to play it. But the other thing is there's other games you're going to play as well. So maybe you get less of a PC upgrade now and get a bigger one later. And you got to remember cash flow over time as well.
But it's that whole thing of, I can play Star Citizen now, but it's a bit laggy. Do I upgrade or wait a little bit? And there is that tug between.
You've also got performance as well and optimization. So as that comes in, it'll also lower the requirements. We're seeing that already. Vulkan has been taken out of the next patch, but when by whenever it is, they said mid-year, right? But maybe extend that to the end of the year. If you are having trouble right now, if your system is old, nothing's going to fix that, right? But if you have a current generation card and it runs kind of crappy, and also look into things like improvement, the SSD, the RAM, the CPUs make big differences. You don't have to upgrade.
You don't have
just
to do
the
whole
GPU
hog to improve it. You can just
the biggest bottleneck in this game right now is the CPU being able to pass that data to the GPU. A lot of the GPUs are fast enough, especially the 3000 series onwards. Like it's where the
bottleneck is between the CPU and the GPU
and servers. That's the other part. Like most of my performance comes when I get lag, It's got nothing to do with my actual frame rate. My frame rate's, you know, buttery smooth in most places, and I might be an exception, not the rule, because well, I've only got a 3000 series card, not a 4000 series, so I'm sure there's people out there with even more current gen than me. Same thing with my CPU and RAM. I've only, you know, 32 gigabyte RAM. I don't have the best system. I have a good system, but not the best, right? So what I'm trying to get at is you can probably buy some older hardware, but again, as Paul kind of said, Star Citizen is way up there in system requirements. It is the top.
And it's one of the things Chris has always done. He wants the game to push the current tech as far as he can push it. And so, you know, where they can, they'll do that. So, yeah. Anyway, shall we go on to the next question?
Yes.
Stefan Zayeti. Do you think we will get Vandal large or capital ships at some point? Yes, but will we be able to pilot them? Probably not, because Vandal are well known for self-destructing if their ship is in any danger of being defeated.
If they ever come out and make it Vandal as a playable side, yeah, but again, that's a huge if, but maybe, possibly never type of thing. So, so it really comes down to what they want to do with it. Like, and again, we're talking so far down the road that is a completely wild guess.
Yeah, that's also like, if the question is, will they sell them? No, you will never they'll never sell Vandal capital ships.
Not after what happened with the Scythe either.
No.
And then you look at the in game, will you be able to capture them? Probably not. There's only one Vandal capital ship has ever been captured, and that's because they had a meltdown of their quantum drive, one of the drives, that basically incapacitated the whole crew. And that's where we get our Vandal size from. They're from that ship. Could that ship have other Vandal ships on it which they could sell down the track? Possibly. Will they do that? Probably not. But Vandal are known to self-destruct their ships, so chances of us being able to capture their ships in game.
The reason I bring up that expansion pack thing too, knowing what us three know about the backstory, Zion expansion, Bino expansion, I could see that eventually being a thing, but it's such a guess at the moment. But it could be a thing.
But if they did that, we're also looking like years down the track, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years.
All right, Shinobi Trip says having a new jump town location in Star Marine would be great for training too. I think that's more of a question than a statement, but yeah.
Well, it's more a statement, but
more a statement than a question. Yeah.
But 100%, anything they put into Arena Commander or Star Marine that enables you to work as a team and practice what you're doing and work, just practice working together and getting to know how you're doing it without risking dying, especially when Death of a Spaceman kicks in. Yeah, 100%.
All right, Monster Avery asks, what is your take on the monthly report on mission features where they talk about new mining and salvage missions in safe, secure space, encouraging solo large capital ships? So wait, you're saying when they do it in secure base, it'll encourage solid. Well, that's something we've always expected, and when we've said things like struggle through a mission, we've always talked about safe space out on our grid. That's been our intention if we've never mentioned, but I'm pretty sure we have.
And yeah, you might not make as much in that as you would in other, but you'd certainly make more.
You're also doing a mission solo that's possibly, like, say in a Reclaimer, it's work for 5 people, and you're doing it on your own, so you're going to make even more money. So it is a struggle, but you would be able to get through it and make a bunch of money to go out and buy a Vulture or whatever, and that's why we've always said
and of course, the downside of that would be that whole needing to run to the different positions and.
Not to mention if the ratings.
Remember them.
Hang on, just real quick. If the rating system's in, you can get other people to come with you.
Yep.
Sorry, Paul, but go ahead.
I don't remember them saying specifically safe, secured space. I remember them talking about salvage and mining missions as something they were working on narratively, but I don't remember them specifically saying.
So an example would be Stanton versus Pyro. You just go into a safer system, is what I mean.
No, I get that. I know that, but I don't remember the monthly report that Monster Abbey is quoting from. I don't remember it saying specifically safe and secure.
Are you talking about January? Is he talking about January? Is the one that
he's talking about? No, he's talking about the November, December. That's what was mentioned in November, December.
Well, there's a new January one that came out the other day. Have you read it yet or not?
Yeah. I read most of it, so I'll have to double check it, but I don't think it was mentioned there.
I saw the Squadron 42 one come out and go, oh, I've got to read that, but I hadn't seen the.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't read the monthly reports. I let Paul do it for me, and I just sit there and listen. It's so much easier than doing it myself. But yeah.
All right, let me go through the.
Sometimes when Paul makes a comment, I'm thinking. But
no, listen to the background. You maybe I missed something.
Different people read and understand other things, and sometimes someone else will read it, and you've been thinking something else, and they'll make a comment, and you go, "Yes, that makes perfect sense."
So that's kind of, what Monster Avery kind of said there in Twitch, says in lawful monitored space in a friendly defenses. So somewhere where it's, you're not going to get the biggest payout, but again, because it's easier and safer, there's less struggle. Like you're going to totally struggle if you try to take a reclaimer into pyro, because it's just going to be, they're going to figure out you're not firing your turrets and you're done for, right?
No, I get that.
Yeah.
But he's saying that it was mentioned in the monthly reports, which I don't remember it being mentioned. That's my point. It's like I don't think there's any mention of safe secured space. Just that it's working on it.
I was just agreeing. He was concurring with me, and I was just concurring with him. Sorry.
I think what his idea was, they talked about missions for these things in the monthly report, and then how is that going to impact doing missions only in safe space? So it's kind of blending that question up, but yeah.
All right, next question. Super Kobe asks, it looks like the Polaris has got some weapon upgrades in its size from the pictures we got. Does the Polaris just do everything while doing it better than other ships of its size? Well, I think it probably, because it's kind of going through that reconcept and they did upgun a lot of the ships, it probably has got extra guns. It probably needs to get bigger guns. As well as it doing everything, no. I think we kind of talked about that earlier. There is no ship in this game that is going to be...
There's no ship that does everything. I can do anything.
That's a terrible idea, because then everyone just buys that ship and nothing else.
Yep.
And you got no variety.
And there will... I disagree. There will be ships that do everything, but those ships will be so massive, like the Bengal, that you won't be able to purchase it.
And but you also get the smaller ones, like say a Connie that's hyper generalized. So it'll do a little bit of everything, but it's a jack of all trades. It doesn't, like. Let's give an example. Say they had the medical module on the Galaxy versus, say, a medical module on the Apollo. You would find the Apollo... Oh, this is a bad example because they both have all the sizes of the beds. But you get what I'm going. So a Cutlass... no, that's a bad example too. Shit.
No, the Galaxy, if you're wanting to have every bed, is better than an Apollo. Because the Apollo can only have two of the types of beds. You can either have a 1 or 3 or 2.
Well, they're different in a way, because an Apollo can have 2 tier 1 beds, but a Galaxy only gets 1 tier 1 bed.
Yep.
But it's a physically bigger ship. So this is what I'm trying to say. So basically, when you go into something that's more, the Galaxy is essentially more jack of all trades, but it also has the size. So again, if there was a ship that was the same size as the Apollo, but it could do medical as well, that would be a better example. But I don't have an example like that I can give when I think about it.
But in terms of what you're saying, yes, you could have your Apollo with 2 tier 1 beds, but the Galaxy can only have 1. But the Galaxy's got the tier 2 and the tier 3.
I've got a better example.
Apollo, it doesn't have them.
So you've got the Connie versus the MSR, right? So the Connie's got more guns, but they both have similar sized cargoes. You lose the gun, but you gain data running. So it's almost like side grading is the way that I try to explain it. So if you're getting, say, a Caterpillar or a ship that's highly modular, you're getting the flexibility of modularity. There's another example, Caterpillar versus the Hercules. So the Hercules gets the vehicle transportation, and roughly they're similar in cargo size, the M2 and the C2. One's lower, one's higher than the Caterpillar. And then the Caterpillar, in response, can't do the big vehicles, but it gets all that different modularity. So you can see how they both play off each other. One gets all this variety, one's hyper focused on just transporting vehicles, but it does way bigger vehicles than the Caterpillar could ever attain, which I think the biggest on a Caterpillar is like a Cyclone. So it's like a small versus a large. So you can see right there a few examples. Anyway.
Okay, next question, unless Paul wants to chuck anything in on that.
No.
Okay, so next question is from KLL. They say, did CIG say any direction they are going to change the combat system? Now it's skillful agile ships kills everything. Will there be a more diverse mode where big ships have a play in daily?
So I think I'd come back to things like armor not being in the game. I also think there's not enough multi-crew in the game.
Resource management.
Your resource management is going to be an absolutely big thing. Time to kill's another thing. There's just so much stuff there that people don't look at. Like even if you take, say, 2 relatively smaller ships. So if you look at a Redeemer versus, say, a Connie, right? Both are going to have engineers that repair that. Actually, no, Connie's not a good example. I'm having a mental blank, but
I saw a comment during the week. John was talking about the Corsair. They said the Corsair can bully the starter ships.
Yep.
Or the smaller ships, but it struggles with anything its size or bigger.
Yep. And it's basically, again, a part of that pirate thing where it's great in the first attack, but if it doesn't kill you in that first attack, as soon as it's got to turn around and come back at you, it's kind of done. You know, that's why it's so forward gun, because it's taking you out in the first wave, or at least trying to disable you in the first wave, or it's done. And once you add time to kill, as Algared said, like if you have time to kill on a Connie, unless that's like constantly following the Connie will just outmaneuver it, and then eventually it's only a matter of time. So the Corsair's got to do it quickly, where the Connie can play the sustain game and outfly it, and eventually win. So yeah, but what I was meaning. What I mean about the Redeemer, though, and like, you know, single fighters, is the single fighters are never going to be able to repair themselves. But if you've got an engineer there that's repairing the bigger ship, even if you've got multiple smaller fighters, it becomes a sustain versus a repair. So if they're constantly repairing themselves and able to maintain their ship properly, they will last. It's a war of attrition, essentially, right? Where what's the gladiator pilot going to do? Stop, get out, and repair the ship, and you're just going to sit there and let him do it? I don't think so. You know, so having crew has a massive advantage that we just haven't even looked at yet. Because let's be honest, most people go out in these bigger ships and they solo them at the moment. We just don't like until the Mole and now the Reclaimer came along. There was no real massive driving force other than the Hammerhead and the Redeemer with turret gunners to really get that. We are literally at the infancy of multi-crew, and once that resource management came in that Paul was mentioning, game changer. Absolutely.
So Paul,
the basic answer is that we have so many things that haven't been put into the game yet, and CIG has said multiple times, and they have reiterated this, that they do not want the choice to be super easy of just put 18 people in arrows rather than having all 18 people in one ship. They want it to be, there's going to be a trade-off between those two, but there is going to be a legitimate point of having 18 people in one ship versus in arrows. But they just don't have a lot of those systems in yet. So that's the problem. So yes, do they want to? Yes. Will they? Not this year.
You can even see it on a smaller level with things like the Scorpius and the Hurricane versus, you know, the single-seater fighters.
Yeah.
Like once
people talk about like the Gladius being super good, it's not. The best fighter in the game is the Scorpius or the Hurricane.
Because
those are the best fighters in the game.
Because once time to kill comes in, armor comes in, you know, and the flight mechanics mature and stuff like that, the ability to outfly the other person. So you're going to start getting pilots, and that's what they do. I'm really good at flying. That's my thing. I'm a turret gunner because I'm really good at that. You know, people talk about getting, you know, the first-person shooter players. You take a first-person shooter player and you put them in a turret gunner. You know those people that just click heads like crazy? They're going to excel at being turret gunners, you know? So you're going to get these people that find niches. It's like anything in life. I was talking to my dad the other day, and this is a really good example. He was talking about you go through life, and it was really funny because then he was talking about how all the people you meet and they all have different abilities, and the example I gave him was the professionals that we pull in, like the geologists and stuff like that, and he got it like that. And this is my dad. I never talked to him about video games, anything, and he got it straight away. And it's going to be exactly the same. Take that into game. You are going to play to your strengths, and you're going to go to your friends that are strong in your weaknesses, and you're going to work together. And the best teams and the best crew are going to know their strengths and weaknesses, and they're going to work together. And that is just like anything in life, right? If I need lore shit, I go to Paul or Algared. If Algared can't turn his PC on, he'll shouldn't say that. But he'll come to me and ask me. You get where I'm going, though, Algared, right? We do play to our strengths and weaknesses, and it'll be it's across the board.
You were going to make a correction. You were going to make a correction about the technical issues we were having this morning.
Yes.
Who was at fault?
So it was my well. It was two parts, right? It was mainly my fault, but we have actually found that there is an issue on your PC as well.
There is.
So it is two part, but the major issue today was mine.
We had the issue where the volume was really low. We went, okay, my volume's low. How do we fix it? We went in to try and fix it. It wouldn't change. Don't know why it's not changing.
That was the first part. Yeah,
it's not going. But and we couldn't fix it. And actually, it looks and goes, oh crap, it was me. I'd done something because.
Well, you told me I was getting echoes, so I turned your volume down, and I'd forgotten I'd turned your volume down, and so when I turned it back up, it fixed 90% of the issues. But yeah, we have to try and. But people's been saying when they talk to Algared on Discord, he's noticeably quieter, and that's why, because his volume's gone from, I think you normally have it at 95 and it's down at 85, so he's somehow and it's in Windows, it won't let him turn it up. So I've never seen that before.
It was bizarre. So
yeah. Anyway,
so it was it was both sides, but you did say you were going to say, hey, it was me.
So that one, the next one we've actually answered. So about the C1. So just go on to the next one, Algared.
The next one
Rain
is
15.
Rain's 15. Does Jared have Chris hands?
I don't get that. Does anyone get that? Are you trying to say he's got tiny hands or something? I don't get it.
I don't know.
I have tiny hands. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know tiny hands as well, so I don't know. I don't know what you.
Yeah.
No, Jared's hands look pretty normal to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah. M Walker 300 says, which do you think will be more useful at races? The Vulcan or the Crucible, and why? Ooh.
Crucible.
Yeah,
Crucible hands down.
You can kind of drive into the
stop.
Crucible with vehicles. Yeah, and
yeah.
No, I kind of agree. You're going to have more depth in-depth repair, where I think the Vulcan's a bit more surface level repairs. It's essentially like a hand tool.
It's your roadside assist versus your proper picture.
Yeah. And I do think there's room in the middle there for another ship as well. We've talked about this a fair bit, and I think it's more. Well, you guys correct me if you or give your opinions, but I think it's more likely to be vehicle focused and something ground based, so the Crucible doesn't have to drive all the way down. Where the Vulcan kind of can get into those spots and remotely send in a drone. There's a gap there for something that is ground based yet has to be there like the Crucible. So it's somewhere mix of the two. And I see it as like a little garage you can either drive into, or it somehow unfolds and you drive into it, or something like that. The other thing is you got to remember that, and Paul's brought this up so many times, and I'm starting to come round to the idea, reluctantly knowing me, that the Vulcan is medium. The Crucible is a capital, so it's either got to be one in between the Crucible and the Vulcan, or one below the Vulcan. So again, I come back to something that's like, I don't know, picture something like a cutter, but there's like an arm that comes off it and can repair stuff or something like that, you know. So it's more of a
or the MPVU.
What I think of is, you know, those trucks that deliver stuff and they have a little crane on the back that they pick up their stuff. They can pick up their own pallets, but it's like a mini little crane. That's what I'm visualizing. So like it's like a mini arm off the Crucible, but for smaller vehicles and stuff. So maybe it's got a little tractor beam to pick up the vehicle. Maybe it's got, you know, and a little crane arm. So it's you know, unfolds somehow or comes out of the side of it. And it'll probably share some stuff in similar traits to the MCV, as in, you know, it unfolds in 3D prints or whatever. Yeah. Sorry, Algared.
It's an Argo ship.
Oh yeah, it could be.
The Argo MPVU. The multi.
Yeah, something like that, but more directly. Instead of the purpose, it's you just take the MPUV and then just make it bespoke to just repair.
I would call it the Argo RU, as in RU, Argo Repair Unit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Connor L actually makes a comment in, I think it's the one of the channels. I'm not sure which one, but he says, does the Crucible rearm or just repair? It does both. It does everything. Rearm, refuel, repair. How do you know that? It's got drones. It's got exactly the same types of drones as a Vulcan, as well as the Scarab, and the actual ability with the arms to do major repairs. So, so I think that to me that answers it
What do you think, Paul? Like, if it was a smaller repair ship to you, like to go smaller than the Vulcan, do you think it has to kind of have it's like an exterior repair? It's the only way I see. I don't think you can have something go into it. It seems to me that it has to be.
You would park it next to a ground vehicle or park it next to a vehicle and have it kind of work at very specific sections. But you're not going to have that vehicle until the Crucible's done.
Yeah.
But I do think that we'll see what like we saw with Drake this year. I can almost guarantee you that once the Crucible is finished, which my guess would be maybe not this year, but when they do Anvil, this is their big focus, which I think will be next year.
I just had a weird, I just had a weird idea, if you don't mind me sharing. The Terrapin with the utility mounts, but it's a search and rescue repair vehicle.
Yeah, I can see that.
And did you are you up on the Terrapin's lore? How
I haven't read the one that was released recently, but I thought I had read that before.
Are you aware that its service in the Navy was actually first put in as the, I think it's 179th Utility and Supply or Logistics Squadron?
It sounds right.
A utility ship. It's actually built as a utility ship. Which
because it was built. Its initial build was supposed to be for long range reconnaissance and to go before a fleet.
I can't unsee that.
So
now.
it was more of a utility.
The VTOL, it kind of like hovers over you, and you have the arm kind of like unfold, and it kind of repairs you, and then
But it was and it is also in law. It is the ship that the Marines actually like to do drop missions in.
And you sit in the scanner seat, and it controls the arm.
Despite being a crunchy, cozy ship, it's a ship they actually like using as their drop ship because it's so stealthy.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's tiny, stealthy, it's
armored.
Yeah, it's armored. It actually is so armored that it makes it stealthy because the armor panels actually block the heat from radiating out. So they have to have those panels that open up, which then release the heat.
You close up a ship and it's kind of
So Connor L does say an interesting thing there. The Vulcan to me is more of a combat fighter service platform, with the Crucible and Gemini being out of combat post-battle services. Yeah, I can see that too, but by the same token, you could also see that as frontline versus backline. So you could have Crucibles at the backline with, say, a Kraken where the ships are flying back to, and they fly back there and get more bigger repairs that the hangar can't or the can't provide.
I've always seen the Vulcan as more of a roadside assist vehicle.
I do agree with the one that really changed my mind on the vehicle was when Badger said he saw it like landing behind like a hill or whatever, and sending a drone in to repair a tank.
Yeah,
that changed my perspective. And the other one that I consider kind of a repair vehicle is the SRV. Send that in, and it just plucks the tank up and flies the hell out. So maybe that's the small repair vehicle if you look at it in a weird tone of phrase.
Well,
it's a tow truck,
an actual. I think we're actually going to get a tow truck, a vehicle that's basically an SRV but on wheels, so that you like for that purpose. Yeah. That's an easy win for repair for like a movement, because you could also use that as a cargo.
Well, you could you
pick up cargo and drive it around.
Well, me and Algared talked a few times about like a truck that carries the big raft boxes, the ones for the hull and that. But also we talked about what if it's more of a utility truck and it does lots of different things. So it has the tractor beam, so it can pick up a cargo box, or it can pick up salvage, or it can pick up a cyclone, and it's like it pulls it. Those trucks that have it puts its back down and they have a cable that tows the car on. Just change the cable to a tractor beam and think of all the things that you could put onto the back of that truck. It literally becomes a utility truck. So if we're on the same page, I think Algared would agree.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. No, that I think that's a no-brainer. And the only other truck that I come back to as a no-brainer for a vehicle is the fire truck, because you're in atmosphere, you're gonna have fire. And people are going to want to. Everyone likes to play different roles. You're not going to have a firefighter in space because you just eject it and it's gone. But to have a fire player on the planet, I think they'll. I don't know. Do they want to have fires break out in forests? and have these massive search and rescue problems. That'd be cool for a bit.
Fires on.
You know what? You know what? One of the modifications to the Gladius or the Gladiator was?
No.
Firefighter ship. It was designed to you swap out the interior bomb bays for giant water tanks that you then dump onto the onto fires.
Well, that's
they were also swapped out for cargo. They were, so it was.
Yep.
I can see the event. I can see the event now. Put out the fires of Lear 3 or wherever all the little babies are going to die. Yeah,
some giant fire that's going. Wildfires are going all over a planet. You have to do an event to go protect the people or to evacuate.
Burn to the ground. Old man Hurston would be so shattered by that.
It would almost certainly be Hurston. You know that. It would almost certainly be a Hurston event where Hurston has wildfires you have to take out before it gets to like a weapons production.
They've got no forest.
That'd be really cool. Like, there's a certain number of factories you've got to save, but every time a factory gets hit, it just explodes because it's full of ammunition. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd probably be more a Hurston problem.
Yeah. All right. Dan Little 2010 says if CIG
no, by the way.
Oh wait. If CIG were to make an origin ship between the 300i and the 400i, would they name? What would they? They won't, because they've got. What have they got left? They got the 2, the 5, and the 7. Are they the 200, the 500, and the 700? So yeah.
Yeah. If they're going to make it between, they've just called something different. I mean, what's the M50? Or the 85X? You know.
Yeah. They are outliers. Well, there you go. You could make it anything really, then, couldn't you? You could make it the 425 or the 400X or.
Oh, it'll be. It might just be called the XR4. We don't know.
The 007.
I've certainly thought that the M50 and the
I kind of agree with Monster Avery.
They're really 100. They're really a 200 level ship if they're going to bring it. If they're going to actually give it a number.
Because of the way it's gone backwards, though, Monster. So Monster said the 300 series should really be the 200, and I tend to agree with him. I do hope they kind of, just before they release, they make all these changes and stuff. I don't think they should, like, there's so many lore things that they've changed and naming conventions and like, you know how they released the tier list beds, but they released it backwards and stuff like that. I hope they just do all these corrections just before release and don't let them stay, because like, if you're ever going to fix them, just fix them all in one hit. And I'd rather have things fixed than live with 10 to 20 years or however long this game's going to live of things that are mistaken. Just fix them all just before release. Well, that's my response.
I doubt they will, because they've already invested a lot of information. Like, because there is a 200 series, which is different from the 300 series in lore and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, but then just make the 200 series the 300 series. Flip it around,
Yep.
Yeah, they probably won't do that.
I did like Dan Little's quote about the discussion we had on modularity. No, never ask a modularity question. I just thought,
yeah.
Modularity question and modules are not a bad question. They're not bad questions, as I said before. It's just that there's so much misinformation out there about what it is and the difference. Because you have to be very specific. Because when I hear people say the Avenger is modular, the answer is no, it's not. It's not modular until CIG makes it modular. Just because CIG said it could be doesn't mean it will.
It basically said the Titan and the Stalker will probably be interchangeable, but the Warlock most likely will be a separate variant. So
yeah, but there's no reason for that. They could in theory do the whole thing. They could swap them all.
Well, yeah, it'd be like the Pioneer versus the Privateer versus the Kraken. You'd have to go to a shipyard to get it fully changed out. Where the Stalker versus Titan would just be going to your own hangar and putting the pods in and out like cargo. That's the difference.
Yeah,
that's hard.
That would be the difference.
Yeah,
but the issue is more of a, like, in theory, in actual kind of game design, there wouldn't be much of a difference at all.
Great.
But when it comes down to it, it's same with game design. It's more of a, do they have time? A, and B, is it worth their investment of time versus other things that they could be doing with their time to improve the game? Because CIG doesn't have the problem with money being limited or like ability. They have skill and they have the money. They just don't have the time.
Yeah.
I think a good example is like the Spirit, because they clearly, you can see them working as modular, but from a development they wanted 3 separate ships for gameplay reasons. So it's partially what you said, and it's also partially what the needs are for the game. So,
yeah.
All right.
Coral, question.
Go for it.
How cold does it get during winter there? I'm assuming you're talking Texas. Okay, how
Australia, Tasmania.
All right, so
I think the coldest it kind of gets here is about 0, a little bit below. I think the coldest it gets about 4 below, but that'd be nothing compared to what Paul's getting if he's getting all that snow.
We might get.
We're not getting snow. We're just getting ice.
Oh, okay.
We might get -2 or something like that. We do get a lot of frost at times, but yeah, it's not as cold.
The coldest it's gotten here since I've been here is -5 Celsius, which is like 23 Fahrenheit for those of you in freedom units.
But what time of day is it at that temperature?
Middle of the night, like in February, sometimes in February. It's always February. February is our coldest month. So
the lowest that was recorded here last year was 5.2 degrees. There you go.
I'd have to look at what Sydney was, but I can't be bothered. But anyway, it doesn't get as cold as that. So, all right, next question. Almond Butter says, what are the top gaming accessories you recommend having for Star Citizen? If not virtual reality, what do you think you'll ever change your mind? Do you think you'll ever change your mind, and what would cause you to change?
I think it's the PC first and foremost, and I think other things too, like a good monitor as a part of
I was gonna say a monitor. A monitor is what a lot of people don't realize. Yeah,
like
it does.
There are people who have disabilities who having a head tracker is ideal, or having a voice command is really good. And there are some really good voice commands out there.
Actually, me and Algared have been looking into one. We should probably pull Paul in on that too, actually. If you're interested, Paul, we'll show what we've been looking at.
And it is, and the one we've been looking at is actually quite good. I do quite like it.
Got some advantages over voice attack, doesn't it? So
it does have some voice advantages over.
I don't know how much voice attack has changed, but the first time I used voice attacks, I had to configure everything myself, and this comes with a lot of pre-configured stuff, and it does more than just games. It literally does a whole bunch of things. Like there are plugins for all these different games, and I've been working with them, and I've been encouraging them to build like a configurable library, so you can go in there and post yours and download other people's and stuff like that. So it's going to become like a bit of a community hub.
And they've actually been working on 3.18 already.
Well, that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for 3.18 to drop so we can actually get in there and do a proper review of it, and then we'll tell you what we're looking at. But yeah, Paul, if you're interested in that, and stuff,
I might be. I'll have to take a look at it.
Yep.
So so those types of things. So it depends on what you're doing and how you're using the computer. I do like those. I know people have used things like Game Class, or whatever it is for the the touchpad controls for things. I did like when I was
Game
using
Class
the.
has dropped a little bit off the radar, though. They haven't had an update in a year and a half, so I'd be a bit cautionary about that at this stage, just because they've dropped off the radar. Maybe if they come back, but they
I did like when I was. I do have a HOTAS. I do like the HOTAS, but I haven't got it set up because I'm limited with space at the moment. But I did set up the throttle at one point, and I did like all the buttons on that. I used to play with an Nostromo keypad.
I've just thought of another one, and Board Gamer would agree with me. Your chair. Believe it or not, don't buy a gamer chair. Buy an ergonomic chair.
Gamer chairs are terrible.
Gaming chairs are disgusting. They are shockingly bad.
They're terrible. Bad for your back.
You will pay a lot of money to get an ergonomic chair, but you will thank yourself for it, because I sleep better in everything. Because
the chair I have right now is an ergonomic office chair that was it's like $400, but I've had it for years now. It's beat to hell. I need to get a new one, but it has saved my butt so much, especially during 2020.
Especially when you're sitting in all day like I do as well. It makes a big difference. And a lot of those gamer chairs, if you know how they're made in China, they're all made from the same mold. You got to buy molds, and no one's prepared to get a new mold because the Chinese won't keep it exclusive. So as soon as someone else makes a mold, it costs them like $1 million to get a mold made or whatever. They'll just give it to everyone else for free. So no one else has bothered to get molds because there's no exclusivity. So they just all use the same.
Or they'll buy it from each other, but are like they're not going to be loyal to the mold.
Yeah.
Or just don't make them.
Because the other thing is you don't own the mold. The factory owns the mold. So you are basically buying them more stuff. So no one buys molds. It's crazy anyway. And then just one last thing on the end there is a good keyboard and mouse, because again, like a chair where it touches your body, you are physically touching the mouse and keyboard. So if you have
Dear God, please get a mouse pad that has actually support for your wrist, because carpal tunnel syndrome is a real thing that will screw you up.
I have a big one. Actually, the one that Star Citizen sells is really good, actually. So you get one of the big Star Citizen ones. They are very good because it keeps everything on the same level. And you also, believe it or not, one that allows you to turn your sensitivity up higher. And I know you're moving your hands more, but it'll actually make you better at, like, that's how I can fly so well, because I use a higher sensitivity than most people. So like if you ever watch any of the professional FPS players, they play with really high sensitivity because it gives them better accuracy. And a lot of people, as we get older, we turn the sensitivity down or up, whatever way it is, you know what I mean? And we use a smaller area because we don't have to move our hand as much. Go the other way because it's better for you. Just put it that way.
The ability to move a small amount to get that fine detail. Yep.
Yeah. So put yourself first, and then I'd probably say your computer after that. Because believe it or not, you can get a keyboard and mouse for $20, but they are god awful. They are not good for you. They are not ergonomic.
No.
Yeah, and you don't need to go out and buy like a $500 keyboard and mouse, or whatever. But just one that is it works with your body. Yeah.
I'm shaking my head at Jack O'Neill's comment from YouTube. He says I look like a bar owner, and I've just got to say, no, Jack. That's very unkind. That's trying to put Paulie out of a job.
That's insulting to bar owners, quite frankly, isn't it? Look, if you're gonna throw an insult out, you got to tailor it to a niche. So he looks like an 1892 bar owner. Then we're on the same page, right? Then I'd agree with you.
He did say with respect, but so he wasn't trying to give an insult. He was just, you know.
You remind me of one. Like I could see you there with a glass, Algared, in some little shanty saloon town.
Playing in the glass.
Yeah. So you're
cleaning the every crack out of the glass.
I think we've confirmed Old Man Hurston is Paul the Redeemer Shelley's long lost grandfather. Confirmed.
I'm not a Hurston.
Old Man Hurston.
No, but not anymore. But you were. Like you were. You've been like you're like 5 times removed or something. Like
old man. It could be why Old Man Hurston's taking Paulie under his wing and turns a blind eye to his smuggling routes. But I personally think because he sends him off to. Paulie says, "Hey, boss, we're out of supplies to the Evercrack, and well, you better go get some."
It makes so much sense now. It's all coming clear.
I just think back to the old, the old icon I used to use, which was, Heisenberg.
Real quick, Paul, are you going to be streaming soon or no?
Not soon. I won't be streaming for a couple of hours, but
okay. Yep.
So I know we're wrapping up here.
Well, yeah, we're getting down to the last few questions, but I was going to say if you want to
stream,
I'll plug. Come. If you're watching here, come join us join me in. Let's see, it's at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's currently almost 6 o'clock Eastern. So
usually works out to be execute lunchtime.
About 2 hours and 15 minutes. About 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'll be starting up, and we'll be talking about the monthly report. We'll be talking about the ISC. I probably won't do a section here, but we'll talk about theaters of war and my big conspiracy theory about theaters of war and what we're going to see and when we're going to see it and all that stuff. So
I think around 12:30 is when the exclusive video we saw for Krux Cup is actually going live. So
you can watch it yourself.
So you can watch it there as well. Without us, but go to a website, sign up, join Krux Cup, fly an Aurora, fly a Starfarer.
Yeah.
And there are, you know, over $6,000 worth of ships and other things up for grabs as prizes for all spread throughout all those race categories. So,
did most of them come from CIG, or were there some private donators there too, Algared?
CIG have, I believe, provided all of the first position prizes. The other donators have, the other people have donated basically second and third. So
nice, bit of everything.
So yeah, there's a good whack of prizes. So yeah, let me encourage you. Race, learn the track.
All right,
come along, have fun.
Bada says, could you see the repair game loop get to the point where you could be a racing pit crew? It was a bit of broken English, but yeah, I think that's something that I've seen a lot when we talk about the Liberator. I could so see a racing version of that thing 100%, because the little things on the side where the vehicles go actually looks like little pit crews. And yeah.
What those cargo things do, to me, it's more a hand repair. So any big repairs you'd need wouldn't work. But if you're doing those small things you might need for refueling, that might work. But that or a Crucible, 100%.
Yeah, Crucible wouldn't be a bad one either, because you could put a small ship in, and potentially, if the ship's small enough, even a vehicle next to it, possibly. We did talk about back in the day putting 6 tonks in that, didn't we? Because of the size of it.
Like I think the Crucible's a better one because of the ability to do bigger repairs or better upgrade, better manipulating or overclocking of your systems. In that sense, you could possibly even look at a Carrack, as weird as it is, because of a Carrack's little workbench room. So if you're able to repair or use that workbench room to upgrade or overclock the components, that may give you an edge in racing down.
Especially if you're doing a smaller ship like a Merlin or something that can take over the place of the Pisces. Yeah, I get
but that comment about the Carrack is purely speculative in terms of being able to use that workbench room to overclock the systems. So,
all right, M Walker 300 says they mentioned a planet from Ellis system as one of the racetrack's locations in AC. Do you think this indicates that Ellis system is one of the systems that would be released soon after Nix? No.
Nope.
It's just that system is where Murray Cup is taken care of.
His runs. Let me explain some things for people who don't get it. The Good Doctor map is on Lear 2, I want to say. And so that actual map, it was easier for them to just build a planet rather than make a map. So literally that is an entire planet that has populated. It's just like their normal planets are, because they can take a planet,
isn't it? It's just the procedurally generated tools. They've just put in the details and it's gone boop. But there's no landing zones, there's no outposts, there's none of those details.
No, it's just the landmass. So what you're seeing with Lear with that, it's not that they've built they've suddenly built Green, which is the Ellis. It's just a procedurally generated planet, just like the Good Doctor map is. And it'll probably change once they actually get to building Green itself. It'll look different. Right now, if you notice it looks almost like Microtech, but not frozen, because those are the assets they have. But when Green actually comes into the game, if it ever comes into the game, as people would like to point out, because people like to be pedantic, it will almost certainly change to match whatever the planet is. So it's just easier for them to do it than building a map. It's just using the tools they have at hand. Same way with how they're doing with Squadron too. It's like everything is just whatever they have. They're just porting it over. Like,
and the other thing is, it ties in with what the developers were saying. When I had one of the coding developers in, and he said, we don't want to keep remaking stuff. If we make something, we want to be able to use it again. So if I make a map just for Arena Commander, they're not using that again. Where if I put the planet in, at least the base planet, without the extra stuff, they're not making it again. They're just adding to it. So it doesn't necessarily mean Nix is coming soon, but or that Ellis will come.
All that stuff is behind server meshing at the very least, anyway. So.
Yep.
All right, Cereman asks, do you think NPC medical missions with its own progression system will be something we might see this year? So if you mean just rescuing a corpse, yeah, maybe. Maybe. But that, I'd be thinking more of a tractor beam and a cutlass, or a tractor beam and a medical Pisces, but I don't think we'd see the Apollo with drones, because that's a drone and we just don't have drones in quite yet. But again, I do know Space Tomato talked to me about, he said that there are potential for drones, because he said it from, but I remember he said something about drones. There was specific talk of drones. And this kind of leads into the next question as well from Almond Butter, but I'll let you guys respond first.
What was the question again?
Do you think medical missions with its own progression system will be something we might see this year?
No, not this year, but soon. It's definitely something we'll see. We'll see the groundwork laid for it. But I think they're so hyper focused on 4.0 that anything that doesn't get them to around 4.0, they're just going to drop it.
Yeah. I could see, the only way I could see that working is that you pick up you drag the dead body into the medical Pisces or your red, put it on the bed, and it's in stasis, and you take it back.
Yeah.
So kind of like you said, a body recovery mission. That's the only way I could see it. I wouldn't see us healing them and then them getting up and walking away or something.
Well, we need the new NPCs in game, which we won't have until post 4.0.
Yeah.
So, and 4.0 is right now scheduled for the end of this year, which means, in CIG speak, don't expect until Q1 of next year.
Yeah.
So
or Q2
or double it.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
All right, next question, because this kind of leads a little bit into that one. So I'm about to ask a question: will you need a drone to use a drone bay to use drones? And from what I remember, no, you don't. There was something else you needed. I think it was
because you need a controller, drone controller of some kind.
And you could have just for example, you could have just a single drone or multiple drones, but you have to switch between. But they take up cargo space essentially.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, could you put a mine recovery drone on a Carrack? Yeah, you could, but it recovers the mine. There's no secure place to store that mine, so
yeah,
there are other issues that come into play. Or if you don't have the pipes to refill the drone with fuel or ammunition.
Yeah, right ship for the right job type of thing again, isn't it? So
you might better have the drones that do the job, but.
So you might be able to recover a drone you've lost. So say there's a drone that ran out of fuel in the middle of space, but you don't have the ability to go get it. You can come back. You send your friend who has a Carrack in an open drone spot to come over, and he might be able to recover that drone and then bring it back. But that's about it.
It's like a reclaimer. You're more likely going to have salvage drones or explorer drones on a reclaimer. You wouldn't want to have a medical drone. But then on a Carrack, you can see a need to have a repair and a medical drone, because it does both of those roles. Again, right ship, right job, right drone.
And if I was recovering a drone, I could imagine I could pull it and put it into my cargo bay, but I'm not going to be using it as a drone. It's going to be cargo, and I'll take it. I think you'd need the control systems to be able to use the drone, and how they're doing that.
By the same token, because you could also have, if you're happy to give up some of your cargo base on the Carrack, you could have a couple of repair drones and a couple of medical drones and swap
that
and
you would
change.
have to take out and swap. Yeah, but
exactly.
And that would probably involve, EVAing.
Yeah. But that might be another part of the character going out for so long. You may just have to take so much stuff with you that you lose a lot of your cargo. But we'll see in time.
Because you're using it as spares and other stuff. So But that's, again, speculative in terms of that regard, rather than us saying this is what's going to be. It's us saying...
Just showing the possibilities, though, aren't we? Yeah. All right. You want to do the next one, Algared?
Kayla Lau says, will the carriers, including Idris and Javelin, maybe, have the ability to reclaim ships? It feels a bit meaningless if they don't.
No, they won't.
No, they won't.
Why does it feel meaningless? I don't get it.
Why would my Idris or my Javelin give you the ability to reclaim a fighter? No,
because they want you to be able to spawn fighters on the deck, because they don't.
If you had the fighter in a cargo crate in your cargo, yes. If you don't, no. I know that.
And having reclaimers and vultures and stuff come along after a battle and clean up the thing, that's where most of their stuff is going to come from, these big fights. You know, you get and you'll get, you know, like a javelin wreck or you know, a Bengal wreck or whatever the big ships come from. That's where they're going to come from. You know, and you'll probably get these reclaimers that strip them down, and then someone else finds the hole and takes it over. You know,
or you'll have your SRVs pulling back the disabled ships to be repaired in those big ships.
Well, it all comes because at the moment they've said those bigger ship holes have to be found. But if you're a smaller ship and you can't restore a Bengal, what are you going to do? You're going to strip it for everything you can, just like a hyena does to a carcass in the real world.
That's not the question he's asking, though. The question is, will the javelin have the ability to reclaim?
Yes, I know that, but I'm going a step further anyway. Actually, I think we just found out. I just think we found out another ship name. It's the hyena. Anyway.
Yeah, there we go. I was going to say the reality is, and this is something a lot of people are going to have to get used to, the current system that's in place for reclaiming ships is going to go away.
Yeah. It
will disappear, and it will be replaced with an insurance system which is going to be based off of quanta.
Yep.
So you may not even have an ASOP terminal to reclaim your ships or even call your ships. You simply will go to the station, to the hangar where your ship is located, and then launch your ship from your hangar.
And they talked about a Mobi-Glass app, didn't they, in one of the recent ISCs that can do the same ASOP stuff. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. You're almost certainly going to have that, and they're going to get rid of the ASOP. The ASOP thing was a
stopgap,
temporary stopgap for what they want to do, because they hate the idea of spawning on panels. That's the reason why Port All-Star is going away, is because they don't like spawning ships on pads. They want to have something a little different. So
yeah,
I hate the ASOP terminal as well, because
first world problems, Algared. No one else lives with that. Algared's got so many ships that he's literally told me he'll start scrolling, and before he gets to where he's at, it kicks him off the terminal. Think about how long that takes. It's like 2 minutes. He can't even get to the bottom. I'll let you guys visualize how many ships that is. That is a lot.
To be fair, it's a mess. I hate ASOP terminals because they show you every ship you have. It should only show the ships you have in your hangars in the location.
Or the ones of allocation.
That makes a lot more sense. Yeah,
or at least put that location at the top if you're going to insist on showing everything. But yeah, it's a mess. It's a nightmare. I hate it.
All right, we're down to the last question, boys. Gunther,
and it's a meme question.
Stoop says, "Can we ask CIG if they can change every ship in Paul's fleet that's not a Redeemer from the regular name to I wish it was? I wish it was my Redeemer. I wish it was my Redeemer."
No. No.
That would make Paul very.
No,
sad.
I think it would be better. Would be like my other ship's a Redeemer.
Or
just all different names that are version of that. I wish it was my Redeemer.
People legitimately think that I hate that ship. My whole plan was to hate that ship so that I could get a free one. No, CIG can pull what I said. CIG can pull my records. They can pull my records and show that I have never touched that thing since they've added it into my inventory, because I hate it. I legitimately hate it. I just despise it. I don't fault anyone for liking it. You know, I'm not yucking anybody else's yum. I like Drake ships, so you know that just give you context. But at the same time, like, I hate that ship. I bloody hate it because it's so much wasted potential. Yeah. Well, it's the worst thing. It's a wasted potential. It's a wasted potential because there were so many other good ships. It was made by committee to win a contest, which is, I'm not going to put down the creators who made it. They worked their asses off and they won a contest, which is a fantastic thing for them.
We all know that the contest wasn't to create the best ship. It was to find
workers,
high-tech engineers,
who are now, many of whom are currently the lead ship designers, like Elson, who got on board because of the next great starship contest. He was a solo one.
It's all before Frankfurt became on board too. You got to remember that. This is when they were struggling to find people that worked with the Crytek engine. So,
it's when Sean Tracy was the Crytek evangelist.
When you got that ship, Paul, I said to Algared, and I said it on stream, I said, man, I'm gonna have to start hating on ships more so they give me like an 890 jump or something. That's what
But the reason I dislike it is for many different reasons, and I don't think CIG should have put it in the way it is. I don't think its function doesn't even work the way it should. I've gone on. I should probably do a big like that's an Inforunners one, redesigning the Redeemer to make it better.
Yeah, can we fix it?
We'll sit down and do a video on that.
We can do
so I can Paul redesigns the Redeemer.
we have had 2 questions sneak in. I'm going to ask the last question that snuck in, which is from Dan Little. He says, "What chip do you love as much as Paul loves the Redeemer?" Well, for me, it's easy. It's the steel.
Yeah, you beat me to it.
But my question to Paul is: Do you hate the steel as much as you hate the Redeemer, or
no?
Do you hate the Redeemer?
The steel. I absolutely love the steel. Not its price, not IRL price. I think its IRL price is a joke, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
But the steel, I love it because it's so bad, and it is so Drake. It is so Drake. It's like we can solve everything by turning it, because the joke is everything that Drake makes is a cutlass. Everything they make is a cutlass. And that steel is just another way of saying, yep. Like I expect them to do a salvage version of the actually no, that is literally what the Vulture is. It was literally a salvage version of the cutlass because it was like an experimental cutlass that they. But I expect them to do not a medical, because they already did that. I'm trying to think. There'll be a mining ship that'll just be a cutlass with mining arms.
Yep.
Like because they can.
So Twitch chat.
That's what Drake does.
So Twitch chat is talking about the title of that episode. We actually had an episode way back when with the Redeemer called Redeemable Redeemer. So that's the title I went with. But they're saying redeeming the Redeemer and stuff like that, or redesigning the Redeemer. We'll probably just call it a can we fix it or something like that.
Yeah.
But
well, we did.
Yeah, we'll look at
The whole process of our can we fix it, and we often did say the idea of a can we fix it idea. We tried to leave it for ships that were actually in game that were kind of a buggy method. So
Redeemer. I kind of want to see where Paul's coming from. So he's looking at other ships that were in the next great starship, but I think some of them just don't work.
No, they wouldn't.
But there were some really good ones as well.
There were some really good ones.
But my point being was that it wasn't built to be a good gunship. It was built to be win a contest.
Yeah, because of the engines and stuff. Yeah.
I can tell you right now, what I would do is I would make the cockpit more of a bubble cockpit so the pilot can see the fucking ground that they're shooting at. And
no. Hey, Paul, stop. No, we're doing an episode. Stop it. We're doing an episode. What are you doing? Shut up. You got a hint of it now. No more. That's it. All right, let's.
No more. That's the first hit. You got to come watch it for real next time, chat.
Right.
All right. That I will ask the last question that Chabby Waki asked there, because it's the only other one there. It says, "What do you guys think about having Alpha UEC earned in the PTU carried over to live? May give more incentive tests." Straight away, it's a no, because it then makes it. You have a massive advantage if we came before new people. So you literally have an unbalanced economy going into the end game.
Yep.
I
understand where people are coming from, but my thought is no. Paul?
I would say not UEC. I would say gear. Give someone a PTU testing jacket or armor set. Something that has
like a beta cosmetic they do in other games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree with that.
Yeah, we've got the alpha jackets and the beta jackets. Yep. Or the alpha, decal and the beta decal. Yep.
Yeah, something with come up, because they already have Evocati, so they could easily do something similar with come up with a PTU thing being like a. Come up with a lore for people who are volunteer to test ships or something like that.
I've just thought of what it is. You know how they do the we've got your back skin, the whole shock skin or something like that.
Yeah.
A skin or a pattern that works on all ships. There you go. That's what I would do.
That's for PTU.
Yeah, and I don't even know what that would be. I don't know, like a special decal. I'm not a fan of decal or text, but I prefer. So maybe it's like a camo pattern or something like that, and you can only get that camo pattern. Like maybe it's flames or something like that, and you can only get those flames or that flame pattern, because that's where I think the cosmetics need to go. I don't think it's colors. I think it needs to be patterns, and so patterns become what you buy. And then even if they had a system where you could overlay the patterns and decals with each other, which I know they can do because of the system they have. It's all possible, but it's...
I want the camos and I want the decals. I want to be able to put decals on the ship. I want the ships to be able to be...
I swear you said dick holes there for a second. I was like, what the hell?
No, I don't want any of those.
All right. I'm officially tired. I think we're going to wrap this up.
See what old man Hurston has to put up with all the time.
All right. So we'll do the usual plugs. So if you like this type of content, like it, subscribe, ring that notification bell. So you get all the videos. Anything else you want to add, Algared? Patreon memberships.
Yeah,
Thank you for the Twitch chats, the subscriptions, the super chats. If you want to go extra mile on Patreon, you can be sitting in here with us right now, listening to us. If you were
right. If you're a star runner, you get to hear our pre-show chatter and banter.
Mm-hmm.
It may make you say, "I don't like it when Mummy and Daddy argue." Or if you're an Endeavour level, you get to sit in the recording channel and hear the live chat, even when we're doing our pre-recorded shows. So you get to, you get to be a fly on the wall, and even sometimes ask those questions in our chat channel, which we do often answer. So,
Paul, how long till you back up? Once you put on pants and clothes?
2 hours.
So
2 hours.
2 hours for Paul. So yeah, make sure you stop by and have a listen to Paul. I'll be doing the same. I'll be in chat, more than likely feeding my face at that time.
I'm sorry, 3 hours, not 2 hours. 3 hours. 3 hours.
I'll possibly be in chat. I know often on a Friday, usually after us, I have to go out, and so usually I'm sitting on a train or something and opening up and
all right, with that then
for a little bit and then disappearing. So yeah,
we do have a show recorded for this weekend, and I think some of you will let out a sigh of relief. It is actually how do I put this? So you would have known the series as What Would It Take? We've actually renamed that thanks to SAM badges, but we have another What Would It Take? It's now going to be known as, oh God, I'm going to butcher this. What did I call it? Command and Control. Command and Control. We renamed it Command and Control, and that's because they're military boys and they came up with the title. And I've made a little logo for that, but that is going to be, oh God, I got to remember what it was now. It was 3 whole seas. What would it take to move 3 whole seas in a convoy fleet over 3 systems? That was the thing.
That was the scenario.
Yeah,
but
and that'll be out on Monday USA time.
Yep. But the command and control title does work better, because when it wasn't What Would It Take, they were literally looking at all the issues and the command and control issues that you would face in logistics and everything else to do that. So,
real quickly before I see if I can find it where you're...
Yep. Well, I'm looking at you scroll through your screens, but yep.
Yeah, sorry.
So yes, I'll say, go check out cruxcup.com. Check out both the Ahomani track and the Apex and the Scarlet Apex track. Go along and join the Discord if you're interested. Sign up for the race, attend the pre-race stuff. And get ready for a very awesome and very enjoyable racing meet.
Wait, there it is. So that's the logo for Command and Control that I made with the boys. So yeah, look forward to that on Monday.
Coming soon.
Yeah. All right. With that, then, Voice in the Void. I hit the wrong button. I'm an idiot. Right, Voice in the Void was Astropub. See him in a couple of hours when he's got pants on. Thank God for that.
Thank God we don't have him on camera because he's got no pants on.
Yeah, I don't need that mentally disturbing image. He's been Algared.
He's been Execute.
And we'll catch you in the next one.
Take care.
Oh shit! I didn't do a raid. Hang on. Wait. I'll do a raid. Is there someone we can raid, Paul, that you know that's online? Or
I can check for Twitch.
Just for Twitch, yeah.
Give me 2 seconds.
Twiddling our thumbs now. And it was such a nice, fluid ending today.
Yeah,
Fast entrance. Logan's playing. Logan's doing. He's doing. He's not doing Star Citizen, but he's doing Battlefield. So
yeah,
Logan plays.
Fine. It's all good.
Just live.
Go smash his like button. Tell him we sent you. And tell him
tell him he should be playing Star Citizen.
Tell him he reminds you of Isaac. He was getting really frustrated at Deep Space yesterday. So yeah, go tell him that he reminds you of Isaac. All right, bye Twitch.
There's Twitch.
And Twitch is gone. And see you guys on YouTube as well. Have a good one.